There it is. Just saw Cody's life. Damn.
I know. I saw Cody. Yeah, he said he was bored. He's just doing Q&A.
A fuck ton of people on there. Holy Jesus. Skip the ad. There you go. I see a twisting head. There.
I'm not seeing the chat.
Turn my headphones up. Turn my headphones up.
I can hear you, Dan. Uh-oh. Oh, they can't hear us?
All right, can they hear Jaime and Monty?
It's just me you can't hear? Can you hear nobody at all? I guess it would probably be everybody, right?
I am also here. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you.
Can they hear everybody now?
No, they can't hear anybody. They can't hear the chat.
Uh-oh.
What about now?
Now can you hear us?
Can you hear me now?
Give it a second. There's a delay.
Okay, now
so we can hear everybody now.
Can hear everybody. All right,
guys, I'm gonna leave now. But have fun, you maniacs!
Horror maniacs!
This stream is scheduled for one fall. We're having a little bit of sound difficulty here.
Alright, I turned up your mic. You should be able to hear you just fine.
Can you hear me now?
Can you guys hear me?
Scream really loudly. Oh, Doc.
Oh, brother!
I can hear you now just fine. You can always turn it up here. There's an issue.
Alright.
Have fun, guys! You can adjust this.
Alright.
In the blue corner, we have the Horror Monty. G. Give them who you are, where they can find you, where you're from.
You guys can obviously find me in the great city of brotherly love, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And you can also find me on YouTube, the Horror Monty G, because horror rules, and so does wrestling.
And in the red corner from the horror show, we have...
None other than Jaime and Fuego, brother, in the deadly deserts of Arizona. And you can also find me at Jaime and Fuego reviewing things that aren't horror, but this is all about when horror and wrestling collide. It's awesome.
Yeah!
Yeah.
The unmovable object meets the irresistible force. And it looks like it collided all over you, Fuego.
Yeah, it really did. Yes, I'm in the red corner for a reason, dude.
Yes. Hulkamania has been running wild on you.
Yeah.
And apparently the answer to that is bleed your own blood. That's what you're gonna do, brother.
I bladed right before, bro.
Gigged, juiced, showed some color.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Outlawed here in the state of Washington, where I'm from, but
no kidding.
Yes.
Damn.
Which is funny because of WrestleMania that we had here, Vince McMahon versus Hulk Hogan, and they were both bloody as all fuck. And I asked that when the committee was telling me this, because I used to book shows and I'm hopefully going to be booking shows again. But when they were telling us that and laying down those rules, I'm like, so how come I've seen that happen in WWE here in Washington? And they're like, it didn't happen. I'm like, oh, it happened. It's just you got to have the money.
Yeah.
Can be
It's
above
on the
law.
WWE network.
Vince is above the law.
Yes, I am above the law. I am above the law.
I am above the law. I am above this. I am above that.
You gonna tell Hulk Hogan no? Shit, man. That's up in Alaska, this ski resort that Arnold Schwarzenegger always goes to, and he's got a picture of himself smoking a big cigar. If you notice in the small back of the picture, there's a sign that says no smoking. No one's gonna tell Arnold Schwarzenegger he can't smoke.
He's gonna lab up his nice big Kalupa cigar and just start puffing up like he did in the beginning of Predator.
Yes.
You son of a bitch.
Arnold Schwarzenegger, who has been involved in WWE, even in their Hall of Fame, who thinks Chucky should be admitted to the Wrestling Hall of Fame?
Well, I know Freddie was a wrestler at one point in the 80s too, right? If I remember.
Freddie still, well, I don't know if he still is, but yeah, Freddie, Leatherface, and Jason all wrestled in Japan, where they just don't give a shit about copyright. They're just like,
yeah,
whatever.
I think the Insane Clown Posse should be in the Wrestling Hall of Fame.
Yeah. They've been
yeah, they should.
They've been in
should, but
WWE. They've been in WCW.
They've been around. The WL.
Yeah. Actually, that was my introduction to Insane Clown Posse / wrestling. Was their old Strangle Mania VHSs where they had the Japanese death match, and Leatherface was in that one.
Nice.
I think he was fighting Terry Funk or something.
Funk was always good for getting lots of blood on him, man. I tell you.
Oh yeah, man.
Yeah, I know.
Gory B says, just not Arquette. I think David Arquette's been doing some cool stuff lately. He's been in some death matches in the indie
I
scene.
actually saw that. Yeah.
He's still trying to wrestle?
Yeah.
Former WCW champion David Arquette, a.k.a. Dewey.
Yes.
That shit was so funny when they put the belt on him. I'm like, he's hilarious.
Even he went to Russo and stuff and was like, "You sure?" That sounds like a bad
that's
idea.
right, because that's after Russo had jumped ship and was trying to help in the Monday Night War when WCW was losing ground. So.
Oh, they were losing it bad at that point.
Oh,
and with good reason, honestly. I mean.
And
yeah, they just simply ran the NWO story to the ground.
Sadly, because it was one of the best stories to ever exist, but they didn't know they never had an exit plan or a way to move on to the next thing. They had this and they ran with that until it was dead, and then they would scramble for another idea, and if it wasn't gold, well, they were fucked.
Yeah, by the time they had the LWO in there, even if my name is Fuego and I love that crew, it was like, okay, we're going too far with all of this.
Though that one was funny because that was just kind of Eddie making a statement. But yeah, at that point, the reason why he's making a statement because they had gone too damn far with all that.
Yeah. Oh, but they had all those badass cruisers in there, dude, Psychosis and fun stuff, man. That was the one thing WWF never really went full on with was that cruiser division. So.
That's WCW. I love the WCW, and I was pretty loyal to them in the Monday Night Wars, even when they were a joke, because they brought me back to wrestling. I loved wrestling as a little kid. I grew up on it in the 80s, and in fact, at my 8th birthday, I didn't want to blow up my candles until I watched my VHS copy of Hogan slamming Andre. I'd seen it a million times. I'm like, no, that's when I'll do my cake. But as I got older, I realized I'm not going to get much bigger. I'm a pretty short guy. And my dreams of being a wrestler were kind of killed by that. Till I was watching WCW, not their first Nitro ever, but it was pretty close there. I'm like, oh, I'll check this out. I saw that Hogan and Macho Man jumped ship, and the NWO hadn't quite formed yet, but it was pretty close to that. And then there was some silly shit that they were doing, like the Dungeon of Doom, which we can get into that in a little bit here with the horror gimmicks. But I saw cruiserweights. I saw Dean Malenko and Rey Mysterio, and I was like, whoa. Maybe I could be a wrestler, and I did. I became a wrestler, so...
It's awesome. I never got past backyard brawling with my neighbors and brothers, taking out the recycled garbage and pretty much everything we had in there, just smashing the shit out of each other with. And
oh, yeah. I did that.
Still injuries.
The closest I ever got to wrestling was playing football for my high school in Philly.
Well, that's rough, too, man. I played high school football, and a lot of injuries can happen, and even that. So even even Pee-wee football, they can have injuries. It's a brutal sport. So
yeah, that's where kids are like messing up their bodies long before they even should be in a lot of ways. And Pop Warner, let's do it. Why not? I mean, I love The Little Giants. Don't get me wrong. It's an amazing movie, but
Ed O'Neill, Rick Moranis.
Damn right, man. The Icebox.
Yes, the Icebox.
Spike don't talk to girls.
Girls can play football too, damn it.
The annexation of Puerto Rico.
Women's wrestling is on fire right now, but it's because of movies like Little Giants that really spread the way, you know?
And also Ronda Rousey, right? I mean, God.
You're gonna get Gory pissed off in the
still
chat.
Terrible.
She's
still terrible off mic, but she's good in the ring. She's really honed her skills, I'd say. So
that was actually pretty good. That was actually pretty decent and physical match that her and Sasha Banks had last night.
Last night they had a really good match. I liked her white Power Ranger attire too that Ronda Rousey was sporting. It was a little better than some of the stuff she wears.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds
So, I don't know. She says some weird shit, like, about cutting off Sasha's hair to warm her feet, or her hair so she could warm Sasha's feet with it or something like that, and no eating avocados, because that's a millennial thing to do. Does she not know that she's a millennial?
I don't think she does.
And I personally identify as a Generation Xer myself, but I'm technically a millennial.
Right. Yeah, same here, dude. I'm like right on the cusp. I'm 83, so I think I'm like 2 years off, something like that. Yeah. But I grew up with grunge music and gangster rap and 80s and 90s wrestling and all that. So yeah, I don't have that kinship with the younger ones. So oh well.
Unfortunately, those people can be my grandchildren. I'm the last. I actually probably hit the baby boom generation.
Right in there.
Yeah, 1963.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you were still struggling with us though, Monty, because of the fact that it was like I didn't have cable or pay-per-view when I was growing up, and so I had to wait months for the pay-per-view to come out on VHS, and then I could find out what was happening, and I was so behind on storytelling, and
pay-per-view was very rarity growing up for me. Every once in a while, I'd have like an uncle who would get it, or a friend who I'd go to their house and watch it. But yeah, I'd get the VHSs, like all the Royal Rumbles and WrestleManias, like at the little mom and pop VHS store. That's how I had to watch it. So
yeah, because what they did when they had pay-per-view, they actually would show them at the Spectrum or at the Civic Center when NWA started doing their pay-per-view. So I had to go to the Spectrum to see the pay-per-views before they couldn't afford it. But it was it was pretty a reasonable price for me and my friends to go see WWF at the time. At the Spectrum. Like I think the first one I saw was WrestleMania 3. They showed it at the Spectrum.
I think that was the first one I ever watched too, just because Andre and Hogan was on it, and I think that's the one I got my hands on. I saw WWE. They came through our town, and they like did a high school gym in like '84, I believe. Wow. Hacksaw Jim Duggan was there. I think Hacksaw was the biggest name on the card. My dad had a picture of me as a baby, kind of being held by Hacksaw. So,
damn.
I don't remember any of it. I was a little kid, like a baby, so I don't remember any of that. But
that's awesome.
But I've always loved horror, and I've always loved wrestling. Those are like my two longest loves, probably. So.
Yeah, same here.
And it's cool when they come together, man. I mean, I still remember seeing guys like Kamala and Papa Shango, and then obviously Taker, in like the earlier WF days. And I was like, and even when Doink was bad, back when he was doing almost the Pennywise kind of thing. Yeah. And I remember him fighting Crush at Caesar's Palace for WrestleMania 9, I want to say it was, or 8 or something. Anyway, it was the one at Caesar's Palace. And, yeah, I was like, oh, this clown is evil, and he's like beating the crap out of Mr. Crushman before Crush went heel, and so good memories.
There's been a few people who played Doink, but it was Maniac Matt Bourne who was the evil one that was such I don't like Matt Bourne. I've met him in person, and they say don't meet your heroes sometimes. And with that guy, he legitimately is an evil man. So, well, he was.
He was playing the role well. So.
But yes, I have to admit, his character, he was more interesting than any other of the Doinks that they had. So.
Yeah, when they brought in Dink and everything, and it was all silly and stupid and stuff. I like the evil clown where they had the laughing and everything. And beginning, and the second half of the music was like the creepy,
Yeah.
like strings and stuff. Like that was always pretty dope.
That was
Well,
definitely
yeah.
the more entertaining one.
Yeah.
Mick Foley, when he first went in there, and they wanted him to basically be like this Hannibal kind of rip-off of the Butcher in a sense, but I think that at least what he talked them into doing with Mankind was something a little more unique, and that was great. Especially he started off basically feuding with The Undertaker right away, so...
Yeah, that was a decent feud.
He was surprised. He's like, because he was going in there from ECW. He'd already done WCW Cactus Jack and ECW Cactus Jack. But when they like, this is like who you're going to be feuding with right away, he was like, really? Right away? And he was getting victories, like on some of those In Your Houses. And I think they did right by him. They let him change his gimmick enough to where it was good and not like just a plain, everyday, this is a scary guy with a mask. And yeah, Mick Foley.
Yeah, once Sacco came into the equation and things got a little bit sillier. I mean, it was still fun. But...
it was just a way, I guess. If at that point you can't be the serious thing anymore, ripping out his hair. It's like it ran its course. I think it was a beautiful course.
Oh yeah, it was good.
I guess comedy was the only way to really kind of go. He'd already lost to like everybody like The Rock and Stone Cold, and even though he did get a little time with the title, he got some time with the title and all. But at that point, like, what else to do with that character? And Mick Foley's just a funny kind of guy in real life, so let him have his fun, I suppose.
Yeah, I've been wanting to see his stand-up, man, and I have missed it the last couple times he's come through here. So,
he was at Crypticon with us at the horror convention last year. So.
Yeah, I know. I saw the pictures.
I'd met him like twice before. I mean, he never remembered me, but that's fine. First time I met him was just a fan. I was just a fan, and I went to like it was a car show, but he was doing a book signing, so I went there and got his first book. It's when that first came out. And then later on, my trainer was on a show with him. I wasn't wrestling yet, but I was just getting trained. It was kind of a mixture of not derby, but roller jam, if you remember roller jam.
I do.
But
it had a television deal at one point, right?
Yeah, at the same time ECW was on TNN with them, and they had roller jam. It was like roller derby, but more wrestling like influenced. It was
they had them on the same night, or was it back to back?
It was they had the roller jam rink around the ring, so they had like 2 wrestling matches and 2 roller jam team events, and Mick Foley was on that one, and that's where I met him the second time.
Nice.
He was always super nice. The first time we met him, though, was like I said, I was just a fan, and I was doing the backyard wrestling at the time. I hadn't been trained yet. I was just still in junior high or whatever, and his book came out, and we went there, and he could tell by looking at us that like we were in our backyard kind of wannabe gear. And he looked up at me and he goes, "You boys aren't messing around with the thumbtacks and barbed wire, are you?" And we're like, yeah. And he's like,
"Yeah, we are."
Cool. And then he just signed his name. So I was like,
he's like, "Well, I can't be blamed. I've addressed the issue here." So.
Cool.
Although it's funny, we always hurt ourselves way more putting each other in like sharpshooters and figure 4 leg locks and stuff like that, as opposed to using weapons, which is kind of ironic. But oh well.
I had a lot of my friends who really stuck with just bashing each other with trash can lids over and over again. And that's fine. But I was doing the Frankensteiners and like flips off the ladders and shit. That's what I was doing. So.
Nice.
Which is pretty much what I do in wrestling anyways. It was a little more fun. We didn't have a ring yet. Once I started getting trained, my trainer was training me on pallets with gym wrestling mats outside. And then I was like, I saved up a lot of money. I was just like, I'm going to buy a ring. So I have a ring now. So,
you do?
Yes.
Dude, that's awesome.
That's decent.
What's up?
I took your camera.
Oh.
I tried to tell you in the chat, but you didn't.
Yeah, I thought I saw that.
Oh, okay. There you go. Alright. Dude, Gory. William wants to know in the chat, what was more horrific, Owen Hart or Chris Benoit?
Owen Hart, because it happened on live TV.
Yeah.
Even though Chris Benoit was even more, horrific, I would say just as bad, horrific.
No one saw it. Like,
yeah, but seeing what happened to Owen Hart live, that's terrible.
And then I was just appalled, like, not sadly because it happened, but then like I think later the next match, because they kept going, there was like a puppies chant and stuff because Miss Kitty and Jeff Jarrett came out or whatever, and it was just,
Well, yeah, because Stone Cold and Taker still did their title match and everything, and everybody knew that Owen was dead, and they just kept the pay-per-view rolling, and it's insane.
I mean, I don't know what to do in that situation. It's an awkward one.
Yeah.
I felt like some of the crowd reactions to, like, you know, puppies and titties. Like, it's sad enough that it happened, but I guess it had to happen in the Attitude Era where all that nonsense was going on. Which I love the Attitude Era, but that's just the wrong time for that type of stuff. Holy crap! I am a dinosaur.
Yeah, that's like a Murphy's Law situation where the worst possible thing happened in the worst possible era of the franchise. So.
And then I was a huge fan of Owen Hart. I was actually hoping that as soon as his contract was up, that because he was doing the Blue Blazer gimmick, and I thought that was a little below him.
Yeah.
Like.
It totally was.
It was, yeah.
And WCW was losing at that time pretty badly, but not to where it was a joke. Like, they had Bret Hart and Chris Benoit even do the memorial match for him. Hell, even that clip ended up in the Malcolm in the Middle, like, opening. So Bret Hart was, like, finally getting his time to shine. Sadly, that's when the spotlight wasn't on WCW.
Yeah, they were losing the war pretty bad by that point.
Yeah.
So.
But I did like seeing Bret Hart on top finally, even if it was a little too late. But it was great to watch that, and I was hoping for the tragedy that Owen Hart would join over there and help kind of pick things up over there. But unfortunately, he never made it.
Yeah,
I legit thought Owen was such a terrific heel, man. I mean, that angle around WrestleMania 10 onward and stuff. I mean, he was great on the mic, and I loved what they pushed with him, and yeah, he was great. It's unfortunate.
He was a fantastic in-ring performer, and he could play the heel so great.
I am not a nugget. I loved Owen.
Yeah, he was great, man.
Even Benoit, like, just separate what happened with him in the ring. That man, like, could wrestle really well. And
oh yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, what was going on in his head that day? Obviously, nobody really does, but. They did say he had, like, then they did the autopsy on him. They had, like, the mind of, like, a 90-year-old Alzheimer's patient because of all the concussions, damage to his head, plus the steroid abuse, so.
And was he taking antidepressants or anything like that as well? Or because I know all that stuff can couple together and just logic is out the window completely. And
yeah, because I know,
sucks, man. That's like real-life horror.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, because I know the autopsy said he was on some antidepressant medication.
I thought he was.
Yeah, I thought it was, and plus he had some other stuff in him. I was like, damn.
Yeah, he. Well, if you can tell from WCW to WWE, with him and Eddie Guerrero, they both like really ripped up as much as Vince could get them to do, and they were taking steroids. Eddie was taking other drugs, narcotics, and that's kind of what led to his death. And yeah, Benoit was taking medication. Concussion suffrage, all this stuff above. Chavo was there like the weekend before, and he said everything was great over there. That's why he still believes that it was some sort of frame up. I don't know. I mean, that seems hard. That's what
Chavo Guerrero Jr. thinks.
Yep.
Jeez,
he was like, I was there a week before, and there's no way that he did that. Someone did that to him. Now this is all completely. Now I don't believe this. I think it probably was Benoit, but it is still a weird circumstance because I was looking into what Chavo was saying. And Kevin Sullivan, who had a horrible relationship with both Nancy and Benoit. Nancy's was Kevin's ex-wife, but then left him for Chris. And very shortly after all that happened, he sold his gym in Florida, Kevin Sullivan, and he moved up here to Florida or Washington, where I live. And now he does like backyard shows behind a bar. Like,
damn.
I mean, they do have a ring and stuff, but it's like, why would he move all the way up here? He told me that it was because he has family up here, but I don't know. Seems a little weird, but I don't know.
Yeah, a little on the fishy side for sure. Damn.
Yeah.
But that's all just it. I don't know what it is. None of us were there. It's one of those mysteries that sadly we'll never know exactly what happened that night, other than some tragic shit.
Yeah.
Big time.
Anyways, let's get away from the real life shit and let's move over to
the real horror.
The real horror of wrestling.
Serious depressed. My God.
Horror gimmicks. Who's your favorites? Fuego. Let's go with Fuego. What do you got for horror gimmicks that you really like?
As far as a match or a character?
Character. Like whose characters that like would exist well in a horror realm but have been used in wrestling?
I mean, I definitely, I mentioned Kamala earlier. He was one of the first that I truly remember. And he's like, I remember hearing about eating the live chicken or whatever. And that was kind of crazy. And, oh boy, Papa Shango, honestly, I thought that he, as, you know, like the brief wars he had in the early 90s with Taker and stuff, I thought were really rad. Boy, head shrinkers were cool. Honestly, Vampiro was another that comes to mind that I really liked when, but I mean, I just loved when Taker was putting together that whole Ministry of Darkness faction, and I know they became the corporate ministry and all that silliness, but yeah, Gangrel when he was going with the Brood, these are just a few that come to mind. But I mean, anything where you're not quite sure if because you know, wrestling took itself very seriously, and then they kind of let everybody in on the whole joke, kind of nod and wink sort of thing, and then they didn't take themselves as seriously. But I always love that angle where they're like, does this character really believe that they are the character? And I mean, Raven was into that at various times, and I mean, even Sting when he started doing the crow thing was kind of cool. But yeah, that just like bordering on the insanity. I mean, hell, even Psycho Sid, where he embraced that whole angle, I thought was kind of cool. He made him much more interesting, and those feuds with Michaels were rad. So that's a few off the top of my head. But yeah, man, I loved Kamala, Papa Shango, Taker, Evil Doink, as I mentioned earlier. I thought was pretty cool too. So,
all right. Monty, what are your favorite ones, man?
Go by an old classic, Abdullah the Butcher.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I think he would make a good one. Ben just mentioned the Boogeyman. I like that character mainly because I don't know if those. I'm pretty sure those were not real worms he was having in his mouth, even though they look real. It probably were some type of probably some gummy worms that he probably had in his mouth. But yeah, definitely the Boogeyman. Trying to think, there were some other wrestlers that had a dark. I'll even go with Demolition. Demolition,
yeah, a little bit, yeah. Legion, aka the Legion of Doom, depending on what promotion they were with at the time.
They kind of had like the evil villains of Mad Max, which is in a sense a horror. So.
Oh yeah. And didn't ECW have a zombie wrestler at one point? I want to say it was like right maybe before they got bought out. I'm trying to remember.
I think they had the zombie. The Insane Clown Posse's champion was a zombie at one point.
Yeah.
Yeah. Count Cucula wants to say, fun fact: Gangrel's fangs are permanent. I'm friends with Gangrel. He's in we'll get into that in a little bit, but he's in Human Centipede 3.
Oh shit!
He's crossed over both ways for horror and wrestling. He's been a wrestler in a horror movie. He's also a wrestler with a horror gimmicks. He's a cool guy. I've been on some tours with him, and he's wrestled up in my area. He's down in California, but he comes up here a lot, so he's a cool guy.
Nice.
Yeah, I've heard those fangs were real. I thought he actually had those canines permanently filed down that way.
Yep, he does. So.
They totally looked it when he was first debuting before he brought on Edge and Christian as his little Brood and all that. But yeah,
they almost brought him back for a new Brood. I think they did have a vampire character there for a little bit in WWE. I wasn't really watching at the time, but he was going to come back. They had him come up to do like some dark stuff and then dark match stuff, and then they were gonna debut him. But then Triple H just basically pointed him out in front of the committee and said, we don't need the old guy. I was like, oh, ouch, poor Gangrel.
and you know, I must say, even though I don't really watch a lot of like current wrestling, unfortunately, I don't keep up the way I used to because of time and whatnot. But that is his name, Bray Wyatt. He's doing almost like the whole like wrong turn, like evil hick talk kind of thing. Is he still a thing, or is that was that a while back now?
He got deleted by Matt Hardy, like he got thrown into the lake of reincarnation or whatever. And then
they had a feud going, right?
Yeah, they had a good feud going, and then after that they teamed up, and he was still Bray Wyatt. He still looked and acted like himself, but he wasn't like evil, I guess. Matt Hardy's partner, and then Matt Hardy got like injured, and then Bray Wyatt just disappeared, and we're waiting for him to come back.
He's been off TV for a while.
Yeah, but it's rumored to come back soon though.
Yeah.
Now, is Matt still with WWE or no? Because I know he gained some popularity with one of the other promotions, right? Doing the whole like crazy angle, and then
the final deletion. They brought him back, and he's still technically with the company. He's also been off TV for a long time because he got injured, and they're not sure if he's going to be in the ring when he comes back or what other he's going to do. But he's still technically with the company.
What's up with his brother?
He's still there.
Jeff was in the Royal Rumble last night. He's still there.
He was okay.
He was a U.S. champion not too long ago. He just lost it a little bit ago. So.
All right, cool. I just have such fond memories of those TLC triple threats with the Duds and Edge and Christian and the Hardys. Man. Those were literally some of the most fun shit I have ever watched. I mean, aside from Mike Awesome putting Spike Dudley through table after table after table. I mean,
that was probably the best time in WWE's like tag division ever had. Just cause those three teams like really brought it every pay-per-view with the tables and the ladders and the chairs.
Ridiculous, man. God, so fun.
Oh, and that's a huge inspiration. A lot of wrestling has mimicked that since then. Because it was not only was it hardcore, but it was also very good high flying. It was good technical. They had almost everything in those matches.
All those guys could take bumps, man, like big time. I'm sure Edge's career maybe was shortened because of some of those matches, but what are you going to do? So,
be surprised. What up, Bearded Slasher?
What's up, Bearded Slasher?
Ariel. Gory's in the chat, pretty much taking care of all that. Doc's in there. Everybody. Captain Sexy Pants. Captain Sexy Pants, are you wearing pants? Because every time I basically see that you're not wearing pants, you're like, I'm not wearing pants.
Oh, no.
He always says that in the comments, but it's like, then why are you Captain Sexy? Well, maybe he's not wearing them. Maybe he just owns them. I don't know. Earliest of horror, like, in wrestling, Undertaker was probably the first, like, horror gimmick to really become mainstream and, like, champion worthy. Usually, like, if you were a horror character before Undertaker, you probably weren't gonna, like, make it all the way to the top and get the belt. But Undertaker really blew that out of the water. It was kind of a silly gimmick, but he just pulled it off perfectly, and we all bought into it, especially as kids.
Yeah, and they had some silly stuff with. I still remember renting one of the VHS, and I want to say it was for like Tuesday in Texas or something like that. But it was where they showed Paul Bearer's house, and he's like giving the tour and everything, and he's like a bloody Tom or a bloody Steve, and all this different stuff. And and they did the whole angle where there was like the mirroring Taker, and it was Taker versus Taker at one point. But I mean, he was the one who brought in so many of those gimmick matches that I loved so much, like whether it was the casket matches, the buried alive matches, and I mean, when Kane came in the picture, those fire matches where they would light the surrounding ring and everything, and Hell in a Cell. I mean, come on, I still contend that Shawn Michaels and the Mankind were just fantastic, man. I mean, such great
Cecil's in the chat. Not to cut you off there, Jaime. Cecil's in the chat.
And he's reminding us that we're all competing streaming right now.
Yeah. So CP streaming live, and so is Cody.
Well, Cody didn't give any forewarning he was going to be streaming. He just decided to throw it out there. So,
as long as you're watching one of them, something's got to be fun for somebody.
Well, it's all the horror community. We all help each other out.
Yeah. Exactly. I don't care. Just have fun.
I'm talking wrestling. I'm having fun. This is dope.
And that's what I was gonna say. Fuego, you're right so much about that, because not only the Undertaker, he pulled off the gimmick, but the gimmick matches. Like he's in so many of those first ones, the Buried Alive, the caskets, and just Hell in a Cell. That was a great one. The first two, obviously. The first one debuted Kane, and that's Kane. There you go, another horror gimmick. Worked really well.
I like the star in slasher movies. Come on.
I actually like the Inferno match him and Kane had.
Yeah, that was great.
Yeah, it was good.
Burning people. I mean, that's things I was doing in backyard. Was we had like some welder's gloves, but that's what we do. We'd like stick their hand in the bonfire, like it's just like silly ass shit. But I had a friend. He was in the circus and he'd eat fire. We called him the Burning Man. And he's a little heavy-set ginger kid, but he was so cool. And he'd always eat fire, and he'd always like clap it out. Me and him had an Inferno match with where it was like you had to throw each other into a bonfire. And I threw him into a bonfire, and he looks like at one point, if you pause it on the VHS recording of it, it's like he's engulfed in the flames. But then he rolled out of it. He's like, "Do it again." So
He's like, that was so much fun.
That's so awesome, dude. Do it again.
It's like, all right, not done. And then I threw him back in it, and that time he didn't get engulfed, but like the little like sears were like burning on him, and he's like, but he was having fun with it. Unfortunately, he passed away right after graduation due to a circus he was in circus and an accident. It wasn't during a performance, but they were like setting up a trailer, and the trailer came unhinged. I miss that guy. He'd be wrestling with me today if he was around. So it's one of those guys that when I went from backyarder to wrestler, like a lot of my early matches, I dedicated to that guy. So
yeah, rightfully so. Awesome. Yeah, it's sad nonetheless. Shit.
I've been, like I said, on tour with Gangrel. I've wrestled some other like horror characters. One of this guy I used to book, he still wrestles in this area, and if I start booking again, I'll probably use him. His name is Marion Geen, but he comes out. He's got like nylons on his head. He's like in a Michael Myers kind of jumpsuit, but the sleeves are ripped off and it's really dirty. He's this big dude with a huge beard. He always has like this weird goop come out of his mouth. Sometimes it's like neon blue or green and stuff. But the only word he ever says is meat. He just shouts it out. And he's got like contacts in his eyes, and his nylons always get ripped and stuff, so it's like half out. And he just like stares at little kids, and they're just like. But
I've seen so many peeps like that in the last few days, like going on either costumed or whatever, because, Rumble was here last night in Phoenix, and they had the fan access, and then tonight is Raw, tomorrow is SmackDown. So day job for me is at a hotel, and we're actually kind of close to where the event was held. And so, yeah, it's been like fans galore for the last few days and just talking shop, and it's been cool. It's made me sad that I'm not as up on current storylines, because I kind of know some things, but don't know lots of others, and they're asking me questions, and it's been more so reminiscing that I can really get deep diving with. So, but yeah, the love and fan base is still there and still super real, man. So.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Monty, you watched the Royal Rumble last night, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
Yes, you did. So did me and Gory. What we always do, it started off with about 14 years ago, shortly after I started wrestling. Me and some of the wrestlers, we'd watch Royal Rumble, and we'd make a raffle out of it. We'd divide up the numbers 1 through 30, and then how many of us we'd divide it evenly. If there was an odd number, then we'd like do a high card draw or something to get that extra number. But if you throw in the money in the pot, and then if you get the winning number of who comes out and wins the Rumble, then you get all the money. So.
Damn.
We do it. It's been twice as much the last 2 years, because we do it for the women's Royal Rumble and the men's.
Oh yeah, because I have them both now. Yeah.
Gory won the money for the women's Royal Rumble last night, and then our friend, a student of mine who I'm training, he won the men's money. And then we do a personal pick where if you like can pick like who's gonna win, everybody puts a beer in, like usually a craft beer, not like cheap ass beer, but some sort of crafted ale. And if you can guess who it, you get that. I won we do mini bottles of alcohol for the ladies' Rumble, because that's a new thing. And then we've been doing the crafted beers for the men's. I won the liquor bottles with Becky Lynch is my pick. Gory fought me for it because we both wanted Seth Rollins, but she ended up getting that one. That was the deal. I'll get Becky Lynch if she gets Seth Rollins. She got the win the beer for that.
So was there any time, I mean, they always have a surprise entrant in the Rumble, like that you haven't seen on TV in forever. Was there anything like that last night?
Jeff Jarrett.
Jeff
Seriously?
Jeff Jarrett. And his old gimmick too, with all the weird like
with the hat and everything.
The hat, the double J hat.
Doing this and everything.
The suspender tight thing that he used to wear that always bugged me as a kid, and looks
ridiculous
on him now, but it was actually funny
so
now.
Does that lead me to believe TNA is no longer a thing? Is that not happening anymore? Because I thought it kind of still was, but is he not involved or?
He's not involved.
No. He's not involved anymore, yeah.
Yeah, he does Global Force, and TNA is now just called Impact Wrestling, and it's actually turned a leaf. They're pretty good. The last year, I'd say they've been putting on some quality product. But
because they were trying to be the competitor with WWE for a while, right?
They came pretty close. They came pretty close to doing that, but then they tried the Monday Night Wars because they were on Spike TV.
Yeah, I thought they were.
Failed pretty badly. And that was the problem. Is what they were doing is Dixie Carter. She's a huge fan. I think she likes the guys. From what Scott Hall ensues, She likes to add a bedpost notch for the wrestlers. I don't know if that's true or not. This is what Scott all says.
Interesting. This is all hearsay, mind you.
Don't tell me she's got a reputation like Sunny.
Yeah, but Sonny in charge. the power role is different this way. So
I always liked Maria a whole lot. And Impact players represent just incredible Lance Storm. Those guys were badass. Anyway.
That was the problem with Dixie, is that she would, like, soon as somebody would get let go from WWE, even if they were like a mid-carder, she wanted them on her show, make the main event, and that made them look bad. They kept bringing in all these has-beens and, like, legends that were cool, but, like, way past their prime, instead of continuing their own talent, which Samoa Joe and AJ Styles, and they had a bunch of great talent that they just kind of let get eclipsed there by the end of it, and I think it was mainly TNA's downfall, is that they just were WWE's hand-me-downs. That's not the way you want to be, so.
No, I had a friend telling me about this the other day, guys, where is it Cody Rhodes is like working with some guy to try to put together a new promotion to challenge the WWE. Can you give me some insight about that?
Yeah, they have actually signed some contracts. Go ahead, Monty.
Yeah, it's called AEW, if I'm not mistaken.
All Elite Wrestling?
All Elite Wrestling, yeah. It's actually run by this brother who owns the Carolina Panthers.
No shit. Wow.
Yeah, they got some money. They need that.
They got the money, but my thing is this: you may have the money, but I don't know if you don't. One thing I always will give Vince credit: he knows how to create talent. He knows what to do with gimmicks. He knows how to put that on, and that's one thing that I think you really do need to have if you're going to start a promotion. Is you got to be able to know what type of characters, what type of promotion you're going to run, what type of talent you want to have, and what type of stories you want to have. You can't just have the money and say, "Okay, I'm going to open up a wrestling promotion."
Yeah, they need to have a good game plan like that. They probably shouldn't try to go like head-to-head directly anytime soon. The problem with WWE is they not only they have money, but they have like this illicit history. The network, you can watch all these pay-per-views for $10, like a month. You can watch any pay-per-view that they've ever had, any pay-per-view that WCW ever had, any paper that ECW ever had.
Even the ECW ones too. Really?
Oh yeah.
Damn, I still have VHS tapes of like man, so many of them. Well, I would record them anytime I would order them before they got purchased by WWF. So
I mean, that's one of the great things of having a WWE network, because Kelly and we have it. So if I wanted to watch some of the old stuff, I can go. I can just put it on and watch it.
Yep, that's the main reason why I got it. When I found out Sting was coming back finally, I was like, I'm checking out NXT. I was like, you know what, I have to get this network just for those reasons, because I like the new NXT thing that they had going on. I wanted to see Sting, and I was like, oh, plus every Nitro, every Thunder, every ECW, like basically TV taping, all that stuff's on there. I'm like, I'm sold on that, plus now all the pay-per-views are basically free. So, okay.
Yeah, that is more than worth it. Holy cow.
It's definitely worth the money.
That's why
I only had the time to catch up on all this stuff, man.
Exactly.
Because there are so many years, like in the late 2000s, where Shawn came back and DX was going again with him and Triple H. I never watched any of that stuff, and I wanted to, and I didn't have cable at the time, didn't have time to watch it, and it's sad.
I didn't really watch the late 2000s either. I was focused more on my own career. I was watching wrestling, but not like following current storyline. I watch wrestling mostly just like, hey, there's something I want to steal or something I want to, like, that gives me an idea of what I want to do. Just, like, for inspiration on wrestling and stuff I hadn't learned yet. I was like, well, I should push myself a little bit on that direction or whatever, you know. I wasn't paying attention to the storyline. I wasn't really into it in the late 2000s, especially what WWE was doing. And TNA was starting to fall apart for me, too, so I wasn't really watching that either. I was just focusing on my own stuff, but... Now, like I said, I got kind of hooked back in just because of what's on there. And that's the problem with AEW, All Elite, is they're going to have to compete with all that. That is something that's like really hard to do. There's even rumors that Impact might even sell eventually their libraries to WWE. They've made offers, so you have every TNA pay-per-view on the WWE network.
Jeez, it's crazy.
It's a monopoly in a sense, and that's kind of a sad thing, but...
Which is because competition breeds creativity, and that's why the Monday Night Wars were so good, was because they were trying to outdo one another. I remember switching back and forth on commercial breaks, trying to just keep up with both. And
yeah, I know that was an amazing time for wrestling.
Yeah, it was a great time to be a fan. It really, really was.
Yeah, because I would go to these posts called 411 Wrestling, and I would always post on there about what happened on WWE and what happened on WCW, and I made some great pins on that site too. It was such a nice time.
It was especially funny where they would like hint at each other's storylines and kind of take those little offhanded swipes at each other and stuff. And it was like a meta awareness of sorts, you know.
It was. So if anything, I hope that All Elite Wrestling, because WWE's had some pretty shitty ratings lately. Like their Raw ratings and SmackDown ratings have been low as they've ever been. And I mean, yeah, people don't watch TV the way they used to anymore. So it's not just because of their product. It's just because that's how TV is these days. People TiVo that shit. They just watch highlights on the internet. So many people don't watch cable the way it was.
It's all streaming.
Yeah, I mean, even if you're going to watch it on cable, you don't have to watch it when it's there. You can watch it later with no commercials if you want to, because that's just how people have it these days. DVR that shit. But, but anything, I hope that maybe the AEW will, like, help bring that competitiveness back to WWE as well, like, where they actually try. They said they're going to, and Rumble was pretty good last night, so I think maybe they are trying to turn a new leaf and give, because even Vince went out there and he's like, it's time that we start giving the fans a little more what you guys want, and hopefully that's truthful. I don't know. We'll see.
Rumble was always my favorite event of the year, man. Like, it was that stretch run leading up to WrestleMania and all the surprises, and so.
That's when they bring in a lot of mainstream, like, casual fans, people who aren't, like, hardcore wrestling fans, but they still watch between, like, Rumble and WrestleMania.
Yeah, and maybe they'll watch the other two of the big four, like they'll watch SummerSlam or Survivor or something. But
yeah, the one good thing I think WWE is doing, especially in the women's division, they're actually going to have women's tag team champions coming out in the Elimination Chamber.
Yeah, that's going to be great. It's going to be weird though because they're going to be for both brands because you can be, if you're the women's tag team champion, I guess you'll be defending it on both shows. While all the other titles are stuck on one brand.
Oh, I was curious about that. Yeah.
But it's going to be cool. It's going to be an Elimination Chamber match with 6 teams. I guess 2 girls in each pod. 3 teams from SmackDown and 3 teams from Raw. Should be a good match. I don't know. I think Sasha Banks and Bayley are probably going to win that. And
I got a feeling.
Bayley's trainer, Styles, his name was Jason Styles. All right. Yeah, he trained my trainer, so that's kind of cool. So I'm kind of, in a sense, related to Bayley through wrestling. Her trainer trained my trainer. It's like her dad is my grandpa, like wrestling-wise.
So I gotta ask, guys. Speaking of like wrestlers getting involved in like horror film and stuff like that. They Live is one of my favorite movies of all time. Oh, yeah. And even though everybody loves The Thing and, Halloween and stuff, as far as Carpenter goes, for some reason, there's just something so eternally endearing about They Live. And it has such great social commentary that I feel is even more relevant today than it even was when the movie first came out, man. And that extended fight in the alley is just like pure gold and maybe one of the best ever put to screen.
All right. Fuego, not to cut you off, Dan. Your wife asked us, me and Fuego, what is our favorite wrestling horror movies?
I'm gonna say They Live is definitely one of them. That probably is my favorite. But I also like See No Evil 2. Not the first one so much, but the second one was good with the Soska sisters directing it.
I like both of them. I like both the first and the second. See No Evil.
I like the first one, but I felt that it was editedly horrible. It's like has this weird fast motion like MTV edits that are like all over the place, and it's like they didn't need that. But that's more in post. I think it was actually still pretty cool. I liked seeing Kane as a slasher. I thought that was a great idea from the get-go, and I'm glad that they made a second one, and I'm even hoping for a third. So.
Yeah, as far as WWE films go, there's a movie that Cecil tells me about all the time that has Luke Evans in it, I want to say. It's called No One Lives, and he's told me how just insanely violent this movie is. I've still not got around to watching it, and he beats me over the head constantly about it. But
he'd probably do the same to me too, because I have not seen that movie yet neither.
It's on my queue. I'm supposed to watch it. I got it like on my Plex to watch, but I haven't actually checked it out yet.
Yeah.
I watched I guess the one I watched recently was The Manor with Kevin Nash, and it is bullshit. Don't even bother.
Kevin Nash, he has been trying to act for quite a while now, I gotta say.
You know the best thing Kevin Nash ever did in acting was that scene he had in the Punisher that starred Thomas Jane. That was it.
Punisher. It was the big Russian
underrated
guy.
Punisher movie.
That's why him and Chris Jericho had a hair versus hair match, because he had to cut his hair so he could be in the Punisher as the pissed off Russian dude that attacks him.
Yeah, now sorry to divert, but isn't Jericho he's in Japan wrestling right now, right?
He actually
think so.
I think he just lost the title. He was the IC title for New Japan. He's actually just signed with AEW.
He's going to join.
All Elite. Yep, he just signed with them.
Yeah, that's what I heard. And a friend of mine who lives in Vegas told me that RVD is about to sign with them too.
Oh shit, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, dude, the whole fucking show was my guy. I mean, those matches with Sabu, dude, like holy smokes, so good. I was sad that his push in WE didn't really go as they were hoping, but oh well.
RVDs have been in some horror movies too. To segue to that, he was in, was it Three-Headed Shark? Yeah, he was in Three-Headed Shark with Danny Trejo. RVD's in. It's a shitty movie, but hey,
is that a sci-fi movie or?
Yeah, it's a sci-fi movie.
Yeah,
the first
you know they actually made a 5-headed shark movie.
Yeah, I haven't seen it yet, but Two-Headed Shark had Brooke Hogan, Hogan's daughter, and then then Three-Headed Shark had Danny Trejo and Rob Van Dam. So it was worth watching just for see their performances, but it's on my part. Rob Van Dam was also in Black Mask 2. Jet Li's in the first Black Mask. I can't remember who.
Yeah.
The second one's not Jet Li, but the guy is still great. He's a great martial artist. And Rob Van Dam is like these pro wrestlers get mutated into these monsters. And Rob Van Dam gets turned into like a praying mantis monster. It's hilarious. But
that sounds insane. What was one that I did? So we did on the channel about a year or two ago, a trailer reaction for one. It was a bunch of wrestlers in a prison fighting zombies. And I never watched it, but the trailer looked so ridiculously over the top. It had I want to say Kurt Angle.
Yeah, it's Wrestlers versus Zombies. That's what it's called. Wrestlers versus Zombies.
Did you guys see it?
Yes, I've seen it. Matt Hardy's in it as well. Matt Hardy, Kurt Angle. There's a few indie wrestlers in there.
Yeah, the trailer was gory. Douglas. It actually looked fun. Shane Douglas, ECW.
And he's got the biggest part in it too. Shane Douglas. He's like, yeah. I was surprised because when I was looking at who was in it, I figured Kurt Angle and stuff was But Kurt Angle, he gets turned into a zombie. Hacksaw Jim Duggan's in it as well, and he's bashing the zombies on the head with his big board, going, "Oh!"
That's awesome. I would love to see that.
Production-wise, it's one of the worst movies I've ever seen, but the wrestlers are fun, and they get to kill zombies.
You watch Troma and Full Moon, so we know about this.
Yeah, it's what to expect from a low-budget movie.
I don't mind that stuff. I just... For anybody who's watching, I want them to be prepared that the production value is absolute film. But
Shane Douglas was another guy that I thought his mic skills were so good. It was unfortunate that when he jumped to the bigger promotions, what was it, the franchise Shane Douglas or something like that?
Wasn't it WCW?
Well,
he didn't translate as well, just like the Sandman didn't translate as well as I was hoping he would, man. Some of those guys, when they made the big jump, I was hoping for so much more, and I felt they were just poorly utilized. So
Shane Douglas actually started off in WWE. He was in one of their first Royal Rumbles. Yeah, I think it's the second or third Royal Rumble. He's in it, and he's in it for a long time. It was when
he changed his gimmick up that he got some. Yeah, he
was never going to be a big star in WWE. He was going to be like the youngster Shane Douglas, where he at best would have done what Marty Jannetty did, where maybe get a small run, but never anything big. So he went down.
Look at what happened with Taz, man. He ends up becoming an announcer, and he was the thing in ECW before he jumped over. And then they're just like, it's this little, little dude. So
that was the problem. They buried him, basically saying, "Look at him. He's like a little leprechaun or whatever." They were saying some horrible shit about him because he debuts by beating Kurt Angle and choking him out. He beat Kurt Angle in his debut, and it was like, wow. But then they just kept mocking him for his size, and of course the crowd's not going to be behind it if the announcers and nobody else seems to be behind it. And a year later, the same pay-per-view that he debuted on, it's he's just Raven's partner. And then less than a year later, he's just an announcer. And it's oh.
Yeah, that was a bummer.
Which
that's terrible.
I think Taz proved it in ECW though when he beat Bam Bam Bigelow that he could take on the big dudes and still like hold his own, but unfortunately, and Vince even like says it like in the whole Monday Night Wars or the downfall of ECW, I guess. Yeah, well, you know, Mike Awesome dropped the title because Mike Awesome went to WCW, and he dropped the title to Taz, who was technically under WWE contract, but was still known as an ECW guy. And he's like, all right, well, I made my champion, Triple H, beat their champion. And he's like, he says it in the interview, like, I thought that would help them out. But then he has like this devilish smile on his face, like, no, you just buried them. You like had your champion just kick their champion's ass, like, because... Dick.
Now I've heard, because I have that Rise and Fall of ECW, but that was obviously produced by the World Wrestling and Entertainment. But isn't there a corresponding one that Douglas and some of the guys who weren't under? It's called like Hardcore Forever, or something like that. It's another documentary produced outside of the WWE banner. I've never seen it, but I've heard it's really interesting, and it's the other perspective of what happened.
Which I would love to see more of that, because they did that with both ECW and WCW. I remember watching that, where basically the wrestlers who got bought out have to say, oh, it's so much better now.
Yeah, exactly.
Even in the Monday Night Wars, you have like Scott Steiner and Billy Kidman going, oh, it was like the best thing that ever happened to me.
Yeah, I have that one too.
And you know for a fact that no, it wasn't, because you guys were like being pushed to the moon, and then when you get there and jobbed out and basically mocked.
You know, it was, the funny thing was when they because I thought it was funny because the WWE had conditioned all their fans to hate WCW. So when they bought them out, there was a match between I think it was Booker T and I can't remember.
Buff Bagwell.
Yeah, Buff Bagwell. And the fans were
Buff
booing.
Bagwell, bullshit.
Yeah, and the fans were booing. Now, I can imagine with Buff Bagwell, but the fans were booing, this match sucks.
Yeah, it was like, even before it even started, this match sucks. They like got no reaction coming out. It's the main event of Raw, but it's the enemy of who you've been told is weaker, stupider, just like pathetic in your sense. You've been brainwashed to think that. And, of course, when they come out, no one's going to cheer for either of them. They're like, well, Booker T should be a face because, you know, people liked him in WC. No, you've made everybody know that you hate him. So they had to turn him heel because Booker T was supposed to be a face. But then they're like, all right, you'll be a heel. We'll team you up with Shane McMahon, and, like, you'll take on The Rock, and The Rock will beat both of you in handicap matches. That'll help, right? I don't know.
I love Booker all the way back to the Harlem Heat days, man.
So did I,
Great, dude. And he's actually working behind the scenes with WWE, I was hearing about recently. So he's not on camera, but he also has his own promotion, like a smaller tier that I know he runs and stuff, and just working as a mentor with these younger guys. I mean, pass along that information and knowledge and insight. It's awesome.
He's still technically with the company. He doesn't like announce, like, if they need an announcer, they bring him on for it. If they need him to replace somebody temporarily or whatever.
Or he'll be on the pre-shows.
Pre-shows at pay-per-views. He helps out with that still.
Yeah. I can dig it, sucker. I can dig it.
He was saying with AEW is like, I've been in TNA and I've been in WCW. The best thing to do is to give an alternative, like, form of wrestling that your fans will build up that. Make sure that that's what you focus on. Don't be trying to be like WWE. Don't try to be like them. Don't go head on against them saying we're the same thing but better. Just say we're a different thing. If you want to check us out, check us out. That's what his advice was, because like, I've been on the losing end against WWE twice. So like, they'll do what they can. It's cutthroat business, so
dog eat dog for sure.
And I don't blame him in a sense, but yeah, that's the thing. I like when there's other perspective or honest, like even if it's just like a shoot interview online or something. I like to hear what they really thought about all that stuff, because when you get bought out by them, of course you have to say it's great, because otherwise you're gonna get fired.
And now, like, thinking about Monty being in Philly, man, you must have seen a lot of the ECW rise and all that stuff, like just going down with that when that promotion was initially growing, right?
Here's the thing about that one. Now, I don't know if you guys ever know, there was a radio show called Wrestling Radio. It was run by a guy named Joe Goodhart. Now, he actually created ECW, but it was called Eastern Championship Wrestling.
Yeah, that was the old name, yeah.
It was the old. It eventually, he ran it for about a good 6-7 months. Then it got bought out. And eventually it got transitioned. Obviously, Paul Heyman got involved, and it eventually became Extreme Championship Wrestling.
I love him.
Who could not? How you not like love?
He is
love
so ridiculous, man. But anyway.
Douglas Browning says Iron Sheik should have been in a horror film. There is a movie called Sheik. It's a documentary on his life, and I'd say it is pretty much a horror film. So.
Yeah.
He break your back. He make you humble. He is the Iron Sheik. He's talking about it one time where he I think he called Piper up, and he's like, Piper, I don't know what to do. Last night got really crazy. This girl I brought to my hotel, she ran away and she went to the cops. I think I'm going to be in a lot of trouble. And he's like, well, what happened? He's like, everything going great until she starts saying she got all mad at me and I had nothing. I couldn't do anything other than short clothesline her, like short arm clothesline her. He's like, you punched her? Short arm clothesline. It's different.
It's not as bad, Jim.
But no, the Sheik, he had a what country? I can't remember if it Iraq or Iran or whatever. I think he's Iran. Sheik, wherever he is from. I watched that documentary about him, and he was the second best mat wrestler in the nation, Olympics wise and stuff. The first best, he disagreed with their dictator. Like, he would go, oh, shit, I got the fucking headphone, or whatever.
Oh, no. An error occurred. Please try again.
Uh-oh.
Ah, shit. Anyways. But anyways, yeah, the first best Olympic wrestler for their nation or whatever, he badmouthed their dictator and then ended up mysteriously murdered very shortly after that.
Ooh.
So... then the Sheik was called in. He was called in to the dictator, like he wanted to speak with him, and he's like, "I hope that we don't have any problems." And Iron Sheik was like, "Oh, of course not. No, you great leader, great." Soon as he had any opportunity to leave the country, he did and defected immediately. He came over to America, and then he started he got a job at a high school gym teaching mat wrestling. But then I can't remember. I want to say it was. Oh, I don't remember who he got a hold of, I want to say Don Morocco, but I don't think that's right. But either way, he started, learning pro wrestling, and, yeah, that's how the Iron Sheik got into pro wrestling over here in America, and as much as there's a lot of bad things you can say about the guy, but he's been through some shit, and he did earn his way to where he got, at least, fame-wise.
Major respect, then, seriously.
Yeah. I don't know who, gave me the thing because it didn't it's supposed to tell me down here, but I didn't even see that. I just saw that my face was
I just saw the stream. You got some type of weird head.
Maybe it was behind the chat that I have popped up. Damn it.
It's gone now.
I'm trying to look to see.
Well, whoever gave me that, thank you so much. Part 1 was by Naughty Dog. Okay.
Yeah. So one that a lot of people talk about is Santa's Sleigh.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I avoided this movie like the plague when it first came out.
Same.
I saw this. It was on the DVD shelf at Hollywood Video. I saw
direct to video, yeah.
I saw Evil Bong with Tommy Chong. I saw the Ginger Dead Man with Gary Busey and Goldberg's Sleigh. I avoided all 3 of those movies right away. I was like, fuck those. Those look horrible. I ended up kind of liking at least 2 out of the 3 of them, but when I finally did watch Santa's Sleigh, me and Gory just started dating, and it popped up on Netflix. And I was like, oh, sure, let's see how bad this really is. It was Christmas time-ish, so we watched it. And I was like, fuck, this movie is actually hilarious. Why did I avoid this?
It didn't take itself very seriously, which is what was so fun about it.
Yeah, it's like this. That beginning scene, when I first saw it, I'm seeing all these, what's James Caan doing in a horror movie? What's this? And then obviously I see Bill Goldberg, and he kills the shit out of all of them.
Oh, yeah. Fran
man, this is gonna be
Drescher.
great.
I think they're Fran Drescher and a few other ones. The Corey Ramato or whatever the guy's name was. All these Canadian comedians. Because it's a Canadian film, and it's even
it
later.
is. Yeah.
You got Dave Thomas later from Strange Brew, which I love that guy. He's their mayor, but it's hilarious. And
Rick Moranis for the win. Come out of retirement, Rick Moranis.
I want
get you in Ghostbusters 3, dude.
I want him in that, and then I want a Strange Brew 2. Electric Boogaloo.
Well, God, if we got Super Troopers 2, for God's sake, I mean, come
on.
on.
Why can't we get Strange Brew? But yeah, I want that. Can't wait for it. Ghostbusters. I know it's off topic, but what do you guys think about that?
I'm all for it. I actually didn't hate on the Girl Busters that much. It wasn't great or anything, but it was all right.
Yeah, it was like this. It's not as bad as everyone said it is. Yeah. It was just disappointing that they couldn't come up with a better story than they did. And they did. That's my whole thing about it. It's like, yeah, I don't mind remakes paying tribute to the old ones. So I didn't mind seeing Dan Aykroyd, Bill Murray, and Ernie Hudson in the movie. I don't mind that, or Sigourney Weaver. Yeah, you want to pay tributes because of how fantastic that film was. But they could have told a better story.
Oh yeah, that's the main problem with me. I don't have a sexist problem with it by any means because the comics have female book Ghostbusters, and the comics are great.
Yeah. Extreme Ghostbusters had a girl on that cartoon. I mean,
I love that cartoon. I have no
really
problem with that. That
was where Egon was like training the kids, right? If I remember.
I mean, honestly, even worse, like you could have had Adam Sandler and his crew on it, and it would still been shit. It doesn't matter that they were women. It's just it was written so poorly. It focuses so much on like I guess like I don't know, just slapstick comedy. While the first Ghostbusters is not even made for kids. It's a good movie that kids can watch, and kids love it. Yeah. But it's a movie that adults can love. It's just a great movie. They weren't, like, worrying about that. Part 2 was a little more catered to the younger generation. I still like Part 2 as much as some people shit on it.
I really like Part 2, actually.
I like it.
It's funny because...
Lord Vigo.
Yes. Well, hell.
It's funny because Howard Ramis...
So, there you go.
Yeah, because Howard Ramis, he did not want to include, what's that stupid ghost name? My mind's going
Slimer?
Slimer. He did not want Slimer in the movie at all, but he was so popular in the cartoon that the studio said, you got to include Slimer, because they want the kids to go see the movie.
Yeah.
Oh, they eventually rebranded the cartoon Slimer and the real Ghostbusters, remember? It's like, good Lord, guys, come on now. I want more Boogeyman, for God's sake. Boogeyman was great on the Ghostbusters cartoon. Anyway, I digress.
Yeah, the last Ghostbusters cartoon, like, they changed it where Slimer and that orange cat were always feuding with each other, but it's like, I preferred. It was just the Ghostbusters. But that's how I felt. And I didn't mind the new one that much. I thought it still kind of sucked, but Laws liked it, and it was for him, mostly like his new kids, and they liked it. I thought it wasn't bad, but I am personally looking forward to 3. Up until now, I've always considered the video game for PS3 to be like the third one because it had all the voice actors come back.
Mm-hmm. And that was originally a version of the script that was floating around at one point, and they couldn't get Bill Murray to get on board, and they couldn't get all their ducks in a row, so they're like, well, fuck it, let's just make a video game instead, and just go from there. But they were able to get him to do that, which is what's funny. Come on, Bill.
Yeah. And now he's in it, though. I've seen some pictures of Venkman in the thing, so he's coming back for 3, so...
Yeah, and they're saying he's supposedly going to die and be a ghost in it or something. So who knows? We'll see.
And sadly at this point we don't have an Egon. But as long as they reference him, if they say, "Hey, for Egon," when they do something, or in memory of Egon or something, as long as they mention him, that's fine. That's all that matters.
Yeah.
Yeah, and with Ivan Reitman's kid directing it, and he's a
Jason
great director
Reitman,
in and of his own right. Yeah, I mean, I'm all for the film. I think it's going to be cool. So.
Oh yeah.
All right, back to wrestling.
Yes.
So the Monday Night Wars, there was the Kiss Demon.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
That cross promotion going on with the Psycho Circus with Kiss.
Yeah. That was sadly was a joke. They were gonna get a Bryan Adams, aka Crush. In fact, when they debuted him, which was one of like the lowest ratings that Nitro ever had during the whole Kiss live performance, it wasn't actually live. It was like they were pretending dub music because Bischoff loves Kiss, so we got to have them on the show.
So that's where it comes from. All right.
They had Bryan Adams later on from Chronic and Crush and WWE, and he was in NWO with Bryan Adams. But he was the Kiss Demon, and like was the coffin and like came up and he like came out and blood came out of his mouth. Then later they gave it to like Dave Torberg or whatever, some guy who was a lot smaller. He's still kind of tall, but just here. And basically, it was just a jobber, but that's because Kiss demanded when they did the whole live performance for Bischoff that they have their own wrestler. It was like in the contract, so they had to like live up to it. That was a mistake. He feuded Vampiro in a few graveyard matches where they like would go to graveyards and wrestle each other and hit each other with fake tombstones.
That's something they would do for like Halloween Havoc. Or because I didn't really watch a lot of the older '90s WCW pay-per-views, but that was something that they pushed the horror even before WWF did, probably.
Yeah, they were really pushing it, and I liked the ideas of the graveyard matches and stuff. I just didn't like Kiss Demon. I also didn't like, I don't know. There's a lot of going wrong with WCW at that time. I was watching it, but I was still sad for WCW. Vampiro, though, like you mentioned him, he was great. He came up from Lucha Libre. He's a Canadian wrestler, but he made his name down in Mexico. And
crazy.
He came up, and they gave him a good push at first. He then had problems, like, he fought Sting about 5 or 7 times, and he won most of them. They wanted Sting, to get the last win, and I guess that soured it for Vampiro, where he started complaining and being hard to work with, and I don't want to lose to Sting. I was like, really? It's Sting.
Sound like Strowman.
He's only one of the most iconic ever in this franchise, for God's sake.
He kicked his ass for the majority of the feud. They just want the good guy to get the last win is all. You should still be happy. Most people don't get to beat Sting at all, let alone most of the feud.
Count your blessings, man. Serious.
And then they had the Misfits show up. They were with Vampiro.
I remember. Yeah.
And this is it's borderline horror gimmick, but one of my friends in wrestling, who I've booked several times back when I used to book, Daphne. She had the crazy girl gimmick where she scream and stuff, and they had her with the Misfits, and Jerry Only hit on her, and then she bit Jerry Only's nose, and all his blood was all over his face. I loved that, though. I loved Daphne, and she was teamed up because she was an assessed stalker of David Flair. Then David Flair went crazy because he couldn't live up to his dad's, fill his dad's shoes properly. So he went mental, and he teamed up with her and some, hitchhiker guy that they met named Crowbar, who was an actual wrestler. And then Crowbar's great. Devon Storm is, his indie name, I believe. But they just went all wacky and crazy, and they had, straight jackets on a lot of the time and just screaming and hollering. That was a pretty cool gimmick. Currently, we have a lot of people are saying she is the new Daphne, is Nikki Cross. She debuted last night, too. Well, she's been just recently onto the main roster. She was in the Royal Rumble, and I think she did great on that. She was in NXT, but she's a Scottish version. She screams, and she's like, everybody needs to play with Nikki. Nikki just wants to play. And she always
she's a crazy banshee kind of angle or something.
Yeah, and I really I'm digging that. So that's
what you thought about Hey Dan, what you thought about what's that girl's name? Tracy Evans. I forget her first.
Evans. I thought she did pretty good. Unfortunately, she did the opening spot with Natalia, and she botched 2 of the things that she was supposed to do.
Oh yeah, I saw that too. Yeah, she botched a couple of moves. Man.
Did a backflip and fell onto her ass, and then later they both got knocked down, and Natty kipped up, or Natty did a handspring. She was supposed to do a kip up, but it was she just kind of sat up instead of kipped up. She made up for it, I think, a little later into the match when she started working with Charlotte and stuff. Because that's she was getting up in Charlotte's face, and I think she's pretty good. I've seen her have some great matches in NXT. That was a little sad in-ring debut there, just because of 2 mess-ups right off the bat.
That's not good, especially when you're right in the ring, and you're only in the ring, and you do 2 bad spots. I said, that's not good.
It's your job as the first 2 people in a Royal Rumble to do something kind of impressive and wrestling-like, because once everybody else starts piling in, it gets a bit of a clusterfuck going on.
It's just bad.
Yeah, so it's not so much pressure on you to do all these amazing things. Usually someone comes in, they get some spots and get to lay a few people out, but yeah, if you're the first 2, you got to do something to really get people going before people are piling in. What's up, Gory?
Hi.
So yeah, that was the Royal Rumble. Actually, I was pretty satisfied with that as a pay-per-view.
Yeah, it was pretty good. Yeah, it was very. Although, like I said, I thought the women's Royal Rumble took a bit too long, but it was still booked great. I liked how they booked it. Obviously, I was not surprised to see Becky Lynch get back in that she lost to Asuka. So I was, I like how it ended.
When they were counting down the last 3, I'm like, Becky's got to be coming out. And then Lana came out, and she was nursing her hurt ankle from earlier in the show. And I'm like, she's milking that so badly. I'm like, don't worry, Becky's gonna replace her. And then later on, Nia Jax did the same thing with R-Truth. She annihilated him, and just how do you feel about that, Monty? Nia Jax coming in number 30 in the men's rumble after she'd already competed in the women's rumble?
I actually don't have a problem with it. It's not the first time that we've seen a woman participate in the men's Royal Rumble. She did pretty good. I mean, she took a hell of a RKO from Randy Orton. So
I saw that floating around on Twitter, even though I didn't watch the event, and that turned into like a meme GIF, like all across the internet.
WWE has this. Go on, Monty.
Yeah, so I give her credit for taking that bump right there. Right. So no, I didn't have a problem with it at all.
See, WWE has this contract with Mattel Toys, because that's who make their action figures and stuff. That they can't show us like a man. Physically overpower a woman, like, on their show. That's why it's PG and stuff. Like, they don't want to show a man do that to a woman. They had Nia Jax come out number 30. What they did to kind of get around that is first she laid everybody out. She, like, beat the crap out of everybody. And then it took 3 guys, because that's, like, that's not breaking the contract. Not a man overpowering her, but 3 men to overpower her. Dolph Ziggler hit her with the super kick. Randy Orton gave her the RKO, and Rey Mysterio hit the 619. Like, they acted like they were literally afraid of her. Like, she's going, like, all the looks on their faces, like, except for Randy Orton. He kind of looked like he was enjoying it. But Ziggler and Rey Mysterio just like, awkward, but I gotta do what I gotta do.
Yeah.
Oh, that was a fun little surprise towards.
What do you think about Hornswoggle?
Oh, Hornswoggle under the ring.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love Selena Vega coming out dressed as Vega from Street Fighter. That was cool.
Yeah, I thought that was decent.
That is cool.
And then she hit under the ring Jerry the King Lawler style, because he was the first person to ever do that in a Royal Rumble. And then, like, out of nowhere, also under the ring, is Hornswoggle. And he chases her into the ring, and then she gets eliminated. And then he chases her to the background. I've tweeted her a couple of times saying, so how did you manage to lose him? Is still going to be chasing you tomorrow night on Tuesday? I liked that because they didn't waste a number with Hornswoggle in the Rumble like they sometimes do. Like, he didn't actually appear as a number, but they still got to incorporate him in the show, and I think that's fine. That was fun.
Yeah.
That's a fun little way to do it. Speaking of which, though, Hornswoggle in Leprechaun Origins, how do you guys feel about that?
Oh
boy! Also produced by the World Wrestling Entertainment Film Division. I saw some of it and I fell asleep. It just didn't have the whimsy that the other films in the series did, and so for that reason, I was potentially already pre-programmed not to like the approach. I liked Leprechaun Returns quite a bit, just getting back to that vibe from the previous films, and so just tough to gauge, I guess. So
yeah, because Leprechaun Origin only there was a couple of nice, decent on-screen kills, but it was like typical cliche cabin in the woods thing. Characters you don't care about. I kind of got the idea they were trying to go with the more mythological, based on Celtic mythology.
Yep.
Instead of the actual leprechauns that we know and love. So I give them credit for trying to do something different. It just missed the boat again, as usual. I
felt that it had no place in the franchise at all. And that's what I hate about it. Like, because if you buy all the movies together, it comes included. It's like, okay, no,
it doesn't.
It should not have anything to do with the other ones, because it's like he's like a furless cat creature. He looks like it's not even a leprechaun. He can't talk. It's like these creatures that got. According to that movie, it's like they used to have a mine nearby, and it's like seems like somebody got locked into the mine and kind of became like a Wendigo almost, because they probably had to eat other people. It came
that sounds like the plot from Until Dawn.
Exactly, that's basically what he was. Just a small version.
And it was like Warwick Davis just injected so much character and personality, and I've always been more so about the killers with more personality, like a Chucky or a Freddy, in comparison with a Michael Myers or a Jason, like the just stoic, silent, stalking killer. I'd like wisecracks. I'd like just like real character with a killer. And when it wasn't there, he had so much more character when I saw him on Raw and some of their programming that I was like, I felt like he was given a disservice as a performer with the approach that they took. So
extremely. That's what when I first heard that it was being announced and Hornswoggle was playing, I'm like, Okay, I'll check it out. Like
seemed
that
like
sounded kind of fun.
Decent
maybe.
casting,
Yeah,
actually.
yeah.
Yeah,
'Cause I
like-
actually,
If you're gonna have someone take Warwick Davis, he's not gonna do a better job, but he's also known as being a funny little leprechaun. So it's like, okay,
Exactly.
that could actually work. I was actually kind of looking forward to it, and then like before it came out, I was getting like I was hearing the news about how he's not like that at all. I saw a little interview with him saying he's never seen any of the other Leprechaun movies, and like, ooh, that's not good. Like if you're taking over the role, but you've never even seen the other movies. Like the same guy that directed Freddy vs. Jason, he said, I never watched the Freddy vs. Jason movie, like or Freddy or Jason movie. Like that's not a good sign. You should be a fan of this stuff, if anything. Like you should know what like not to do and what to do because there's so much lore there in those movies. You know what the critics like, know what fans hate about those movies, and know what fans like about those movies before you take it over. And so I was like, oh, okay. And then I watched it, and I'm like, yeah, this is shit.
It was bad. I mean, I'll watch I will watch the Rock in the Doom movie before I'll rewatch that. I mean, come on, and Doom is pretty damn bad.
Yeah, Doom where it goes into the first person shooting.
Yeah.
oh yeah, now see, that's what I loved about that movie was that first person. I said, oh man, we're actually getting Doom. Yeah,
it was fun. Though I would say that the effects for that whole scene don't even like hold up to PS4 and like Xbox One graphics now. So it's like, it didn't age
that
well.
Movie. That movie with the cast, especially Carl Urban in there. I mean, it could have been just such a kick-ass movie. I think. We all know what happened.
I'm gonna grab something real quick.
Yeah, because I saw Leprechaun Returns. Decent on-screen kills.
It's not great, but I mean, it at least returned to that silly, cheesy nod and wink kind of vibe.
I guess what they thought to do. It's like this. I says, well, because I expected something worse because I knew it was a sci-fi movie. But I said, yes, a decent on-screen kills.
And yet sometimes when you go in with your expectations really, really, really low, I mean, you're not likely to be let down. So.
Yeah, the new Leprechaun actually is pretty cool. He's actually gonna have some nods in our Oscars coming up here soon. So he's nominated for a couple of things.
I'm super excited for. Yeah.
I was just glad that they went more with the direct route of what the Leprechaun. This one feels like it is a part of the series. And sci-fi.
Yeah,
I was worried about sci-fi, but I still think they did a better job than WWE did with the film franchise.
The Halloween approach, right? They're like,
they did the Halloween
approach to the original. So it's like, okay, guys. And that Jennifer Aniston lookalike or whatever the hell she was.
Voiceover where she's like a professional voice actress where she can do a Jennifer Aniston impersonation and stuff. And she did a good job. I actually really liked it. I didn't think it was going to be great, but I thought, like, it has to be better than this WWE. Just because I'm probably looking at it, I'm like, at least they have a real leprechaun in it. Like, so there we go. And actually, it was good. So I hope they actually kind of continue it on. That I can't remember the actor's name who played him, but he did a good job.
Yeah, me neither.
And we had Ozzy came back from the original. It's the first one that actually directly ties into the original. So.
Oh yeah.
Because the other Leprechaun sequels, they're different leprechauns. Like Leprechaun 2, 3, and 4, those are different leprechauns completely. Like Warwick Davis played them all, but they're not the same leprechaun that's in the first movie. The only one that was ever the same one was in The Hood and Back to the Hood. That's a direct sequel to In the Hood. That's the same leprechaun, but
I just love, as Cecil gives me shit about all the time because I say it constantly, I love Leprechaun 3, the one in Vegas, dude. I love where he saws the guy in half and
that was funny.
The girl with the fake boobs and everything's getting big. Like, there's some good kills in that. Yeah, exactly.
Because I thought 3 was better than 2.
It was. I like the one thing I liked about 2, even though I don't know how it would kill you, is like he takes the fans and the guy thinks they're boobs and he's going in for it and gets killed. But 2 wasn't that great. It wasn't horrible, but it was okay. And then 3 was like, okay, this is at least really funny, so I liked 3.
Yeah.
And then 4 was
then he went to space and then the Hood and everything else.
We're at part 4 in the franchise, and it's also got to be like a softcore porn in space. It's like, wow, let's jump that shark. Let's jump it real high.
When in doubt, let's get some boobs.
Yep. And then In the Hood was interesting. I didn't really like it, but it was like, okay. And then they made In the Hood 2. I liked it a little better than the first In the Hood, but
that was the one with Ice-T, right?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, he was in the first one, but not in the second one.
Oh, okay, yeah, I'm getting them flip-flopped then.
But I think I like the story of the second one a little bit better for what I don't know. I haven't watched those ones in a while, so.
Yeah, same.
But then, speaking of Doom, the movie is kind of more based off of this book of Doom, which I actually like. But Sarge is like this fat, repulsive guy in the book. They got The Rock to play him in the movie, and they made it more about him than they made about the main guy. Yeah, Doom. I hear they're remaking Doom though.
Yeah, they are actually.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's any wrestlers gonna, but it sounds like it's gonna be a good movie. Kind of hope.
Well, the property's hot right now after the last two, and there's another one that they just announced recently that I know Cecil at least reacted to a trailer for. So. Now, guys, I have to ask. So when you first mentioned this, and it's been so long since I've seen it, I don't remember it very well. But when Danny first hit me up and he's like, "Yeah, we're going to do this whole wrestling and horror discussion," WrestleManiac with Rey Mysterio is what immediately came to mind for me. It's been a while since I've watched it, but are you guys fans of this film?
Oh yeah, I like this film. It's not like a perfect film, and it's really cheesy. It's fairly cheesy, but if you're not like in a serious mood and you just want like kind of a fun film, I recommend it. I actually thought
because I saw it. I saw it because that's the first thing when I was looking up, and I remember this film when I saw it. I said, "Well, I'm probably going to talk about this." I said, "Yeah, it's a nice, cheesy, dumb, fun film."
Yeah. It's one of those movies where like the first 5 seconds you find out later is like the climax of the movie. Spoiler alert. But
full circle.
Oh yeah.
And
full disclosure.
It's one of the like cheesy these characters that like in a sense they're dumb. Like you got the fat wrestling fan, but he's with these porn star people who are making a porno and they want to go down to Mexico and like this ghost town and like film a porno in a ghost town. And well, then Rey Mysterio Sr., who technically is Rey Mysterio Jr.'s uncle, he took his uncle's name when he became Rey Mysterio Jr. And because I don't think his dad was actually a wrestler. I don't know. Not a famous one.
I don't think it was. I think it was just his uncle.
Yeah, and then Eddie is like not related to him. He's Chavo's uncle, but Eddie's family and the Mysterio family, like the Guerreros, they are very tight. Where they're basically family. So he like trained, and Rey Mysterio started training and became a wrestler at the age of 13. So even when he was young and debuted in like ECW and like WCW and stuff, he was like a vet despite how young he was at the time.
Yeah, so I'm with him. I'm trying to remember. Did they ever give him a headline or push like they did with Eddie, or did he ever get to that level? I can't recall.
He's won the heavyweight title at least once or twice.
I thought so.
And then he won the WWE title, which is they're both the headline titles. He won that.
But one's for the respective promotions, right? Yeah. Like there's a SmackDown title and then there's a Raw title now,
basically,
or something.
Yeah, basically now, because I was actually when the Royal Rumble came to Philadelphia. It was him and the Big Show left at the Royal Rumble, and he did an amazing spot where he took the Big Show, got him out of the ring, which was an incredible spot because we really had some decent seats. We saw him when he won the Royal Rumble.
Nice. Yeah. And hell, he's in his 40s now, and I'd say he's still putting on phenomenal matches. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, I like Ray, and he's had some gimmicks too. Most of them are like he usually wears like superhero gimmicks when he does big pay-per-views.
Oh yeah, and he's also taken off his mask for periods of time, and then like put the mask back on. And yeah, sadly,
that was Kevin Nash's booking. Kevin Nash, he's like, I want to take his mask off of him, and Kevin Nash was not the best booker for WCW. He's also terrible. Like. He was not only when he wanted to take Rey Mysterio's mask and did it, he also was like, I want to take Goldberg's streak and end it. I also want to like let Hogan beat me with the finger poke of doom. These were all Kevin Nash's booking.
So speaking about last night's Royal Rumble wrestler and a streak ending, like Taker's streak being ended at Mania was so dumb to me. I don't know. I know it's off topic, but I just why?
He's a horror character, and so it's not completely off topic.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess the only idea I thought was they were trying to push Brock Lesnar at the time, and that's the only reason why they allowed him to end the Taker streak. And I'm because I thought for sure that they were going to let his streak go on until he retired.
I figured if he ever lost, that would be his last match. Like if he ever did lose it, that was going to be the thing. Brock Lesnar, I'm not saying that he's not an unworthy and unbelievable character, because he is this huge beast, but I think if they were going to do that, they probably should have did it when Brock was more young. Because at this point, Brock had already been around for a while, and he was like came and gone a couple of times. So I didn't expect him to win the streak then, just because of like his way of in the business. But, like, yeah, I mean, he could probably do it, and it shocked a lot of people. I wasn't like super happy about it, but at the same time, it was what it was, and I just kind of feel bad that he kept going, but now like the matches mean less. Like he still only shows up for the most part on WrestleMania. Like he does a couple matches otherwise, but for the most part he's usually just WrestleMania. And I don't know, it's just like even when Roman Reigns beat him, which that wasn't a very good match. In fact, there was a "You can't wrestle" chant during it. It was directed to Roman Reigns, but I just I didn't like. I'm kind of glad, I guess, that wasn't Undertaker's last match either, just because I don't want his last match to have something like that involved in it.
Yeah, that's a bad stigma.
Yeah, because you can see in that match that he couldn't do half the moves that he could do anymore.
And that's the sad part. Like even when he was doing the matches with Shawn Michaels and Triple H and stuff, he was, throwing himself over the top rope onto the outside, and he was doing all the stuff that Undertaker, we love him to do. It's kind of sad. He can barely move these days, and I don't know. It's going to be hard to see him finally when he does do his last match. I just hope that it's kind of quick, it's kind of simple. He pulls out some of his greatest hits, whatever he can hit well, and then maybe just tires, because I love The Undertaker, but
same,
he needs to just really finally rest in peace, sadly.
I see where you went.
Dan.
Yeah.
Your lovely wife asked me to ask you about Santos.
Santos, yes, I wanted to talk about Santos a little bit. He is, if you took Elvis and Superman and like all the big things that have ever been popular in America, Santos is like 4 times as big in Mexico. He's had like, I think, 100 movies. Some of them are horrors, like Santos versus the Mummy, Santos versus the Zombies. It's the guy has done everything. Like how Elvis and like James Bond and all these other characters together. That's basically Santos. The man was very, very tight about his lucha heritage too. He never took off his mask. Nobody, for the most part, really knew who he was, other than his direct family. Like, except for right when he finally retired a couple years before he died. He did finally remove his mask because he was like put into some sort of like legendary Hall of Fame, and he finally showed his face for the first time ever. But he at that point didn't do any projects after showing his face until he died a couple years later. And his funeral was epically huge. I believe traffic was basically shut down all of Mexico City and then some, because of how important that man was down in Mexico. Have any of you seen the Santos films?
Probably not. I don't think I have.
A lot of them, I think almost all of them are black and white. I think almost all of them are black and white films. There are probably maybe some colors ones, but Mystery Science Theater, I believe, has one of them. I believe Mystery Science Theater did one of them. But Santos, yeah, a lot of them are horror related. He fought, I believe, Dracula. He's fought the Mummy for sure. He's had Zombies, the Living Dead. The man has done like everything. It's like he's had beach party movies like Elvis. He's had James Bond type movies where he's like basically a secret agent that goes in and saves the day because some sort of plot is happening.
That's awesome.
He was recently.
The way you describe. Sorry, continue.
He was recently put in the Hall of Fame of WWE, last year's Hall of Fame. They always like take a cluster of like legends that died way before like the 70s, really old legends and stuff, and. Fame. Santos finally, even though he didn't die that late on, he was finally added to it with that cluster of like old. He's finally in the Hall of Fame thing.
Damn, yeah. The way you were describing it just now was reminding me of him. It was one of my favorite movies last year. It's not a horror movie per se, but it's got some horrific elements to it. It's called Low Life. You guys ever heard of this movie?
Yes, I
have.
And,
with El Monstro, and where he's got the family legacy to carry on, and like he won't take the mask off, and like he's involved in some underworld crime type shit, and oh man, it's such a terrific movie. I love it.
That actually sounds like a character of, I think it was in the second or third season of The Strange, where you had this old Mexican guy who used to star a bunch of movies. And one of the I forgot the character's name. He loved him a lot, and they actually saw him in real life. So I think that's where they probably based his character off of.
Yeah, totally derived from the real life stuff.
It's not a horror movie, but Nacho Libre is based off of 2 different wrestlers.
Oh yeah.
There was the priest wrestler. I can't remember exactly his name, but a lot of the life where he grew up in a priest and like very poor, and like he would he'd go wrestle and bring home like money to feed the orphans and stuff. That was based off I can't remember that wrestler's name, but that's based off of him. And then also someone who was in the LWO. El Dandy.
LWO.
El Dandy. If you guys remember El Dandy from WCW?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
That's also what Nacho Libre is based off of. El Dandy was basically a jobber to the point where he then won. He got his mask ripped off, but he still won the match against this big time star. It was his only real big win. And then right after that, he got signed to like WCW. And my favorite thing was when Bret Hart was like feuding Dean Malenko for their the U.S. title, and he was telling Mean Gene Okerlund, he's like, I've already beat Dean Malenko, you know, I have a groin pull and stuff, and I can't face him again. I don't think he deserves it. He already had his chance. And then like Mean Gene goes, well then who do you think should face you for the TV title? And then he's like, I'm glad you asked that, Mean Gene. El Dandy, you are a stand-up guy and a heck of a technician wrestler. I want to face you you should face me for my U.S. title. And then like Mean Gene's like, El Dandy, he's been in the cruiserweight division. I don't know when the last time that guy ever got a win. And he's like, hey, who are you to doubt the powers of El Dandy? It's like one of my favorite Bret Hart promos. It's sad though, because I think it's so like nobody really knows about that Bret Hart promo because.
Nobody was watching it.
I had no idea.
But that was one of the best things he ever did in WCW. Just kind of really fell into the shadows. Bret Hart wrestled it.
Great documentary, man.
Yeah,
great
documentary.
Seeing all about the dungeon and everything.
Once again, your wife has told me that to tell you that she actually has a list of the wrestler horror movies on Letterboxd. She put a link up in the chat.
Nice. Yeah, there was 2 recent ones that I was curious if you guys had heard about. One is called Wrestle Massacre, and it's about this serial killer who decides all of a sudden he wants to be a wrestler. It looks about as low budge can come, but I don't know if you guys were curious about that. And then there's another one that's more female-centric called Parts Unknown that I watched a trailer for before this. And that one, they have a Grindhouse-type trailer that looks kind of interesting. That at least has a higher production value than the Wrestle Massacre movie that I think debuted just a few months ago in San Francisco. But yeah, those are 2 like brand new ones that either are available now or going to be available soon. So,
Doria's list kind of reminds me here of not El Santo because he like I said he fought the zombies. He fought like it says Dracula, but it's basically Dracula. He's also had vampires. Just lots of things that he's fought. Frankenstein, all these other ones that were horror, but not only just El Santo, but in America, Tor Johnson, who was also in some of the Bela Lugosi movies like Plan 9 and Ed Wood movies, basically. Tor Johnson was one of the first wrestlers to kind of make it into the mainstream of movies, and a lot of those were horror movies as well, so...
As I look at this list, I'm guessing Gremlins 2 is on there because of the Hogan talking to the audience. Is that why that's on there?
Yeah, which didn't make it to theaters, but was later put on the extended cut.
So that was not in the theatrical release, huh?
No, which is weird because...
I did not know that. Wow.
Which is the most like surprising part because that's like directed to your theater audience.
Yeah,
like,
to the audience. Yeah.
That whole scene is made for the theaters, basically, and it's not in there. We had Jericho in Sharknado 2.
He got eaten by a shark too.
Yeah, he was the guy running the carnival. He was running the roller coaster ride, and then he gets eaten by the shark that keeps going up and like finally gets up to high enough to eat him. Seth Rollins.
Blade Trinity. Sorry, was that because Triple H was in Blade Trinity? If I remember correctly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
And even though he's a vampire, he had metal fangs. I guess someone defanged him as a vampire, so he had to have metal fangs. Seth Rollins was in Sharknado 4. He fuses a bomb, or he sets a bomb up that like kills the Sharknado. One of them.
Since I don't know the modern wrestlers as well, Seth Rollins, was he the guy who was with Roman Reigns at one point? And they were
all with the Shield.
He won the Royal Rumble last night as well. So.
And also, didn't Roman Reigns have like some form of cancer come back recently or
Sadly,
something?
yeah, leukemia.
Yeah,
so
sadly, yeah.
he's
It's terrible.
I hate to say that it came down to this, but he finally is now a face. People are not going to be booing that man anymore. So
Nope.
it's sad that it took leukemia to do that, but finally,
because the company gave him a push and people just weren't buying it, right?
You know,
they gave him too big of a push. Unfortunately, they were like pushing him down our throats, and it's not like his fault by any means in a sense, but it's just bad booking in the opposite direction. Nobody thought he like officially earned it yet. Vince is like, this is the man, you're gonna like him because I say you're gonna like him, and
damn it,
the resistance was pretty strong with that.
No, my thing with Roman Reigns was a Royal Rumble he did some time ago, and when Daniel Bryan was way over at the time, and he eliminated him, and I think that's when the fans turned on him, and I think he never recovered from that.
Well, now, so Daniel Bryan, sorry, Dan, go man.
Technically, Bray Wyatt eliminated him in that particular Rumble, but everybody, it didn't matter who was going to win. They were going to get booed because once Daniel was gone.
Yeah.
And the year before that, Daniel wasn't even in the Rumble, and people were actually cheering for Roman Reigns because they had Batista in there, and they like booed Rey Mysterio, who's number 30, because Daniel Bryan wasn't number 30. So 2 years in a row, Daniel Bryan being popular got everybody booed in Rumble. So.
Yeah, and I was going to say, he retired and now he's back too. And isn't he a heel all of a sudden as well? Because I saw like one of his shoot interviews from last night or the night before or something. Yeah. And he was like talking about the fans being a bunch of sheep or idiots or something like that. And
they're fickle.
Fickle. That was the word he kept it. He used it like 3 or 4 times in the interview, if I remember.
Yeah, he finally got to come back because his head.
He was hurt though, right?
He had injuries that made him need to retire. But he got his own doctors, and then they like talked to the WWE doctors. They finally said, okay, you can wrestle. But after every match, he has to go back. He has to do an eye test, a hearing test, and like he has to do a math problem. Not like a really complicated math problem, but he has to prove that his brain is not mush, basically, with the concussions that he's had in his life. So he does that.
So are they not giving him big bumps then?
No,
he
takes big bumps. He takes
Is
big
he really?
bumps.
Wow.
Yeah. His first match back, he was taking big bumps. He's been doing that, and it's a little scary. He fought Brock Lesnar and got thrown around like completely, like tossed around like a rag doll last Survivor Series.
Shit.
Yeah. Okay. He was taking some big bumps off of that too. I'm like, damn.
Yep.
I heard they were going to try to do that with Paige because I think she suffers from too many concussions. That's why she had to stop by. I think, and they're trying to see if they can do to clear her.
Yeah, especially because she's not GM anymore. I was actually I wouldn't have been too surprised if she showed at the Royal Rumble last night. She didn't, but I think they're doing what they can to try and clear her as well. But with her, it's also kind of a spine injury, so it's a little different because she got drop kicked in the back by Sasha Banks that like really messed up her spine. So, but I don't know. I want Paige to come back. I like Paige. She's also always kind of had like kind of a horror gimmick just because she's very goth and she had like the pentagram on her like top. She like was also really good at wrestling. While when she first kind of like showed up, that was when WWE was in their blonde Barbie doll. Like it's more important that you can be in Playboy than if you can wrestle. You know?
Wrestle, yeah.
Thanks, Sable, for that. I guess.
Yeah, they was still in the diva era.
Yeah, and so when Paige showed up, that was some fresh breath like breathed into the division. And I think her plus Becky Lynch and Charlotte especially, who's just amazingly great wrestler, they finally like took it back and said, no, this isn't a diva division. This is the women's division. Honestly, though, I think the women's wrestling is the most interesting thing that the WWE's got going on right now.
I've heard a lot of people say that, actually. Which is
Becky Lynch Becky and Asuka, they were awesome last night.
Yeah, they were. I was surprised to see Becky lose cleanly as she did, like even tap out. But then she showed up still. She took Lana's place, who was hurt with her hurt ankle, and took her place and then won the Rumble. And that was fine, because I wanted Asuka to keep her belt, and I was hoping, in a sense, that it would be kind of clean, because she needs some credibility, because Ronda Rousey basically gave it to her, and that was kind of sad. Asuka deserves better than that. But I also was like, Becky still needs momentum. She still needs to win this, especially if she's going to be beating Ronda Rousey, hopefully at WrestleMania. Because right now, Ronda Rousey says that she's probably going to quit after WrestleMania. That's when her contract's done.
Oh wow!
She feels
Is
that
she gonna go back and try to like fight again? Or
No. She wants to start a family. Her and her
Wants
husband.
to be a mommy.
That's
Good
what she's
for
saying.
her.
It is
Sure.
good, though. The way she worded it, I have to kind of like tease her a little bit about this because she's like, I feel that I owe it to the human race to spread my genes. Like, because she has very superior genes.
There's no air of arrogance there whatsoever.
And okay, someone's
man,
The world will be given a disservice if I don't have my spawn or whatever.
Basically, that's what she said. She's a little high on her own supply.
Teaming. Jeez.
But, but they're gonna try and like throw some money at her and keep her for one more year. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, because Fox is supposed to be getting SmackDown later on this year. They definitely want Ronda Rousey.
Yeah, they want Ronda Rousey. They made it very clear. Plus, they want the whole 4 horsemen of wrestling versus the 4 horsemen of MMA. And they have them all under contract right now. But if Ronda leaves, then they won't have them all under contract. So they'll see what they can do. They might have to settle on like she leaves, but then comes back occasionally, or whatever.
Like Batista or something, or like the Rock and Lesnar. So many of these guys have gone on to bigger other careers and stuff.
Yeah. So and she's in some movies as well, so I guess that counts as a wrestler making it to movies. I don't think she's been in a horror movie yet, but who knows?
No, she hasn't.
Yeah,
Give
the
it
one
time.
that I was. Let's bring it on, guys. The one that I'm shocked that we didn't address because I even forgot about it. Jesse Ventura in Predator, man.
Oh yeah.
So damn good,
I ain't got
man.
time to bleed.
Exactly.
I think everybody in that movie will hold, or if they haven't already, will hold a position in the government. Like all these
former Minnesota governor Jesse Ventura.
Former California governor Arnold Schwarzenegger. President Predator. I would vote for President Predator.
I want Apollo Creed in office. Damn it, get him in
right.
there.
The most epic handshake ever.
Yeah, you son of a
bitch.
Jesse was great in that. He didn't like have a whole lot. Like they build up the characters, and then they get killed off one by one. Which that's how it goes though. Jean-Claude Van Damme was originally the Predator. He was like this beetle-looking creature, though. I'm glad they canned that because what they got was so much better.
Yeah, they said it's like if you're going to go up against Arnold, you can't have this small little alien.
Small little alien beetle that's just like, and it just looked like shit. It looked like a creature from Power Rangers or some shit. And it sucks because he had a scene with Billy, the Native American guy, where he fought him, but they had to cut that out completely because they they couldn't use the footage anymore because they got rid of that character and they had a new Predator. They didn't have time to film a new fight scene with Billy, so it's like that's why he's he cuts himself with the knife. He's ready for the Predator, and then all of a sudden you hear a scream in the background, and that's it. That was because they filmed the scene, but it was filmed with Jean-Claude Van Damme doing all these kicks and flips with the Beetleborg costume on. Which I want to see that footage.
Oh man, that would be awesome to see too.
I don't want to. I'm glad it's not in the movie because I think it would have ruined the movie. But I want to still see it out of context and just enjoy how silly that it probably would be. Halloween, the Rob Zombies. That was a wrestler from WCW as well. The Michael Myers.
Yeah.
Who was it?
He was.
I was not aware of this. Now I'm jumping on the look.
I forgot what character.
It's Tyler
Maine. Yeah.
Yeah.
Tyler Maine.
I forgot what character he was in WCW, but I knew he was a wrestler.
He's definitely wrestler size. That's for damn sure.
I can't remember what his wrestling name is, honestly, but he wasn't there very long. He was a very short-lived wrestling character. I don't think he actually could wrestle very well, but he had the look. Same thing with Nathan Jones, who he's in Boar recently. Did you guys watch Boar last year?
I did.
We did a trailer reaction for it, but I don't think we ever got around to it.
Oh.
I saw Boar. It's okay. Yeah. I thought, it's okay.
It's got Bill Moseley in it as well. Bill Moseley's in there.
Yeah, Bill Moseley's in there.
Boar was actually pretty good. It had, for the most part, it had a lot of practical effects with their giant boar. They did use a little bit of CGI with it running around on the screen, but not too much. Nathan Jones.
It was a movie that took place in the Outback, I want to say.
Yeah, it was filmed in Australia.
Okay, yeah.
I saw that WrestleMania live where he teamed up with The Undertaker, but he didn't team up with The Undertaker. It was more of a handicap match. But then he shows up at the very end to do a little roundhouse kick to A-Train or whatever. He was a shitty wrestler, and that's why, like, they went to Undertaker's house and they, like, practiced the match over and over and over again at Undertaker's house in his own ring. Nathan Jones couldn't get it down, so what they did is, like, he gets knocked out with a steel chair before, like, in the beginning of the pay-per-view. And then later, he comes out at the very end of the match to do a roundhouse kick, and that is it. It was because he was so bad at wrestling that they had to, like, cut the match or him out of it. And they promoted it like
sad.
Yeah, they promoted it like crazy for months, and then that's what they had to do. I didn't like Nathan Jones as a wrestler. He was then in the movie Troy, which he accidentally hurt Brad Pitt. He's supposed to have this big epic fight scene with Brad Pitt, but he hurt Brad Pitt during stage rehearsal. They came it down so where Brad Pitt just like throws a spear in and it kills him, and that's it. That's all. He's a big gladiator guy in Troy. He's gonna fight Brad Pitt, but then Brad Pitt just like kills him with throwing a spear at him. The end. Once again, his part is cut down because he can't perform. I really felt bad for Nathan Jones, but at the same time, I'm like, well, he sucks, I guess. I love him in Boar, though. I love him in Boar. He's finally redeemed himself in my eyes. He's singing Vanilla Ice, Baby, and he's just like mouthing it like it's laying on his radio in his Jeep, and then the boar smashes into his Jeep and it like rolls down the hill. And
just when I thought you couldn't get any dumber, you do something like this and totally redeem yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah, I liked him in Boar. I liked the Australian actors.
Yes.
In the film. I thought they used too much CGI on the boar.
They did. When it runs around, it looks like shit. When it's a close-up, it looks great. It's like this big, hairy, mechanical beast, and it's eating people. But
I'm actually making a note right now about it because Cecil and I actually thought the trailer looked pretty good. So I'm like tossing a note in right now to make sure I don't forget about this movie.
And early production, they were bragging about like their practical effects, and like I thought they were originally going to go all practical. That's what I was under the impression of them doing. But no, there is some CGI, and that looks like shit.
God.
Often that'll happen when your budget's running low, and you're like, well, shit, we got to finish this movie. Can we make another design? Can we do more of that? No, we got to get it done. Okay, let's CGI it. And
CGI it in post and call it good, and that sucks. It's actually a pretty good movie, though, overall. It's just that really hindered it from making it higher in my ranks of movies. But I love Nathan Jones in that. So there you go. It's a wrestler in a horror movie, and it actually got me to like a wrestler that I never liked before. So
I was super curious about Tyler Mane, so I just brought up his wiki real quick. So apparently he was in WCW in the early 90s, and he was teaming with none other than Vinny Vegas, if you guys know who he went on to become. And, when he left to be Diesel, he just basically left dude high and dry, and he went to Universal Wrestling Federation at one point, defeating Stevie Ray to win a vacant title, but he ended up walking away and deciding to pursue acting, and he's had a much more fruitful career there, so kind of interesting.
Tyler Mane and Vinny Vegas, a.k.a. the Great and Powerful Oz, a.k.a. Kevin Nash, a.k.a. Diesel. Did you ever watch that one show that he did? The one time he was the Great and Powerful Oz, where they had like Dorothy and the Tin Man and the Lion. And they had this giant epic entrance, and Kevin Nash comes out, and Kevin Sullivan's like his little announcer as the Great and Powerful Oz, the Great and Powerful Oz, everybody hail Oz. And then Kevin Nash defeats a jobber within like 30 seconds, and then from what I understand, never was the Great and Powerful Oz ever again.
One and done.
One and done. It was perfect. It didn't need to ever be repeated. It's the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen, but I love it for all the wrong reasons.
That's some of the most entertaining stuff sometimes, though, right?
Like, it was this... So much money was put into that entrance alone, and it's just like, no. The crowd,
Oz-worthy, if that's the case.
The crowd just looks so confused. Like, what the hell is this?
I'm so confused.
But now, like, about 20 years or more apart from it and looking at it, it's brilliant. It's fucking genius. Speaking of Kevin Nash, he's in these TNA movies with Kurt Angle. Like, one of them's River of Darkness. Have you guys ever see that?
No. No.
It is a shit fucking TNA movie. Like, even the TNA logo is like the biggest thing on the cover, I believe.
I didn't even know they made movies, man. That's
Yeah,
crazy.
Me neither.
They wanted to compete with WWE in every way possible. They had River of Darkness, where like these zombie, basically Grim Reaper killers that are dead. They show up and wreak havoc on this town because of this shady past where this guy was killed and he was like innocent from the beginning, but the town needed a scapegoat. Kurt Angle is the current sheriff of the town, and the killings start happening again. And since they like didn't kill the real killer, they killed the innocent man a long time ago. These Reapers are getting justice. Kevin Nash is one of the Reapers. Not only that, but you got Kevin Nash, Kurt Angle, Glacier. Do you guys remember Glacier from WCW?
Oh yeah, I do.
Yeah.
And he had the same thing with the Great and Powerful Oz, where it was all entrance, it's huge build-up. He's Sub-Zero. He has like fake snow falling, all these lasers, and then he has like a choreographed match where like they're all choreographed, but it's like choreographed to fit martial arts. Like he like does a few roundhouse kicks, a few backhand splits, like all that kind of Jean-Claude Van Damme shit. Originally, Glacier was supposed to be played by Rob Van Dam, but he turned it down.
Wow.
The guy that plays Glacier, though, he actually lives in my state, or at least he used to. I don't know currently, but a few years ago, he's still in Washington State. He's like a gym teacher at Lake Chelan, not far from where I live. So. And
he had the straight up MK3 like Sub-Zero costume, at least with the mask still.
And I liked it, as stupid as it was. I thought it was fun. The problem is like he beat a bunch of people that way. The biggest win I think he ever got was the big boss man, Ray Traylor. He beat him. But then, like, nobody higher than that was willing to even work with him. Like, he hit that glass ceiling really quick. And that's what killed Glacier's momentum. Like, they like to say, well, it's because of his silly gimmick. But if you go back, like, on the network and watch his matches on Nitro and his pay-per-views that he showed up, the crowd was really into it. He was, like, flipping around, kicking everybody's ass, just, like, doing all these kicks and shit. But for what happens, like, nobody else higher, like, especially in the NWO and stuff, was like, I'm not gonna fight some ninja from a video game. Screw that shit. It's like, and that's what killed his momentum right there. He became basically jobber status shortly after that, and I feel bad for the guy because he gave it his all. But politics is the real horror of wrestling. So. Go.
Yeah, just about any creative force, I would imagine. Jeez.
Yeah, that was definitely the downfall of WCW, the politics that was going on over there.
Nobody wanted to lose to anybody. There always had to be interference in any match, like every match, just blatant interference. The gimmicks that all Russo was stealing, like, because the thing about Russo is
he was like, they were my gimmicks originally, so I can steal them because I'm stealing from myself.
And that's what he wanted everybody to believe. But if you really pay attention, what he was doing is he stole all of his attitude gimmicks for WWE from ECW. But nobody really watched ECW because they weren't on TV yet. They had, like, their hardcore fans in Philadelphia, but ECW was not big all over the world. WWE could steal their shit and nobody knew what he was doing. Santa Claus got chokeslammed by 911 on ECW. Oh, well, let's have Stone Cold stunner Santa Claus, like, a week later on WWE. Like, he was stealing a lot of their stuff, making it attitude error friendly. But then when he went to WCW, he tried to rehash all that again, but like at that point they'd seen it. It's been released to the world on a big stage. They know that it's just recapping all the shit that he's already done. Which
it felt tired by that point.
Yeah,
it genuinely did.
It was because the problem was it was already on decline.
Yeah,
and then they got him, and everyone thought, "Oh yeah, we got Vince Russo. We're really gonna, he's the person. He's the reason why WWF was successful because of him." But unfortunately, he was just doing the same thing he had done before,
which wasn't his stuff to begin with, as I'm stressing. But like.
Yeah.
That's all it was. It was like, I can rehash. I'll sell the same shit that I took from someone else, and then I will sell it again to somebody else who's desperate for something else. But there was no soul into it. It was like, hey, we took this and we're giving it to you on this. Everybody saw right through that.
Yeah, and it was just lame because of the fact that WCW had been good doing its own thing, and in turn, by that point, it felt like WCW trying to cop a vibe as opposed to just continuing what they had already been successful with. You know, they were trying to jump on a flavor train, and oh, what's the hot trend right now? So,
and then it was with their wrestlers, which most of the world at that point didn't give too much shits about. A lot of them, not like they had their stars, but they had their mid card, which was trying to grow and trying to get great. Nobody knew who they were, so when you threw all these gimmicks that were rehashed from WWE on them, no one wanted to fucking see that. They're just like, well, they're cosplayers basically, and nobody wanted to watch that.
And that was the problem, because none of the big stars wanted to put those mid cards over.
No.
Hell no, they didn't.
And then, you have Russo putting the belt on David Arquette, putting the belt on himself, and just...
Oh, I forgot about that.
It was such a mess. Moving on, but yeah, anyways, one of the best things about River of Darkness, it's a shit movie, but Glacier was a prominent star. He turns out he was the, real killer in the thing, and all that stuff. They killed the wrong man a long time ago. Glacier's the villain. I fucking love River of Darkness because Glacier is so big in that movie, even though it is garbage. Hot garbage. Speaking of Glacier and the mixing of horror in a different way, Glacier also went on tour with Gwar at one point.
What? I know your affinity for Gwar, sir.
Yes. Gwar Woman would kick Glacier's ass during the Gwar shows for a small tour that he did with them, where she would rip off his Glacier armor, and then, he'd have, these wounds underneath. So he looked like he was bleeding because she'd rip off that Glacier WCW shitty armor that he wore. But it was like a fake ring where they have, the ropes in front of the stage, but nowhere else. There's just those 3 ropes in front of the stage, but he'd get whipped into it a little bit and, clotheslined by her and kicked by her and shit. He got to do some his super kicks to the Gwar slaves before being killed, so there you go. There you go, Glacier. You were in Gwar once again.
Yeah.
Have you guys seen Monster Brawl?
I have not seen Monster Brawl.
No, that was one that I saw pop up on a few lists, though.
Yes, Monster Brawl, I have this movie, and I've been meaning to review it, and I'm going to eventually. It's... take WrestleMania and take it in a pay-per-view format, all right? Because the movie is a wrestling format, where they have a card, matches, but throw in the Universal Monsters. That's who fights in this tournament of Monster Brawl. You have Frankenstein, the werewolf, you have zombie, you have a Dracula, or well, it's a lady vampire, but you have the creature of the Black Lagoon, all that shit. And
damn.
They just basically they're at this there's no venue, it's in a graveyard, but there's a ring. It's got Jimmy Hart talking, he's got these 2 chicks with him, he's talking about these monsters and how they're gonna kill each other. You got announcers. David Foley is one of the announcers randomly. Kevin Nash is in it. He's this drill sergeant, and he has the zombie. He's the zombie's manager, basically, because he's got the zombie, that's the military's weapon. He's gonna fight Frankenstein, the creature of Frankenstein. They have managers too, the creature of Frankenstein. Frankenstein, the doctor, is his manager. There's there's the Cyclops. There's the witch bitch. And the witch bitch has this little person as her manager. It's hilarious, but I'm
totally bringing up the poster right now.
Yeah. I gotta check that out.
It's a wrestling pay-per-view that's obviously not live, but they did get some indie wrestlers to play the characters. The Wolfman, I can't remember who he is, but he's an indie wrestler. He knows how to do moves. They basically do choreographed wrestling matches. At the very end, all these zombies come out of the grave, and so there is kind of an audience. The announcers and the Jimmy Hart and stuff have to flee or shoot them with guns because that's going on. But the main event comes down to the werewolf versus the creature of Frankenstein. And it's for this title belt, and it's ridiculous.
Says Lance Henriksen is in it, apparently?
A little bit, yeah. He does have a cameo in it.
Yeah. Bring him on the set for one day, and we'll give him billing on the cover. Why not? Sure.
Hey, listen. Not to cut you off. Hey, listen, gentlemen. As much as I love enjoying talking this with you guys, it's 11 o'clock here, and I have to get to work tomorrow.
It's fine. I think it's a pretty good time.
We are at the 2-hour mark.
Yeah, that's about what I was planning on going on with. So we'll go ahead and end with that. It was fun. We can always do this again sometime.
Yeah.
You definitely got to do it again.
So maybe a couple months, or maybe the night after WrestleMania, part 2.
Oh yeah, that'll definitely be good. Yes.
I think we hit all the crucial turnbuckles, or however you want to put it. You know, cover all the bases. We covered all the turnbuckles pretty much, or at least most of the big ones. So
we had a 2-hour Iron Man match, and I just want to thank everybody in the chat. Thank you for checking this out. Make sure
HBK and Bret Hart ain't got nothing on us for that Iron Man. Come on.
One more time, tell me, Monty, where are you from? Where they can find you?
I'm in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and on YouTube. And y'all can go on ahead and sub my channel too, by the way, as well, if you haven't already.
Yes. And Fuego, give him a little shout out as well.
Yeah, man. So my personal, I guess social media is just like my name spelled, Jaime and Fuego. But I'm also in a horror metal band. I would be remiss if I didn't mention us. We're called Chiron, Chiron, and you can find us on Reverb Nation and Facebook at Chiron Band AZ, and obviously the Horror Show channel on YouTube.
Hell yeah! Thank you guys for showing up. Thank everybody in the crowd. 1, 2, 3, ding, ding, ding. I'm ringing that bell now.
All right. Good night, fellas.
Good night.
Later, guys.